Chapter 111. On the stage, when Han Chi and Han Yu heard Chu Bei's words, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Although the Han family had enough authority and status in Tianbei City, compared to the Wind Thunder Pavilion, the difference was like heaven and earth. Not only was the latter the overlord of the northern region of the Central Province, but it was also one of the top forces in the Central Province. After all, the reputation of the One Palace, One Pagoda, Two Sects, and Three Valleys Square Pavilion was not just for show. At the side, Hong Li was startled at first, but when he reacted, the corners of his mouth rose into a sinister smile. Previously, when Xinyun said that he wouldn't interfere in the matters between the two families, he was still dissatisfied. But now, Chu Bei's words had undoubtedly angered Xinyun, and he was also a guest of the Han family. This anger could very well implicate the entire Han family. This was indeed the case. The moment Chu Bei's voice fell, Xinyun's terrifying aura began to spread out. "You dare to insult my Wind Thunder Pavilion!" Xinyun's eyes were filled with killing intent. However, perhaps because he wasn't clear about Chu Bei's background, Xinyun didn't immediately make a move. Instead, a terrifying pressure enveloped Chu Bei. "You're saying that this Hao Leichui is an imitation. But do you think they're similar?" Chu Bei naturally didn't care about Xinyun's pressure. With a wave of his hand, he placed the cracked Hao Leichui and Thor's hammer together in Hong Chen's hands. Then, he looked at Xinyun with a playful expression. Not only were the two different sizes, but they were also made of different materials. The patterns engraved on them were also completely different. "The Hao Leichui has been lost for a long time. At that time, the senior in the pavilion who made this imitation only made it based on his memory. Naturally, there would be differences." At this point, Xinyun's tone suddenly changed. "Although its shape has changed, its essence is still there. It contains a large amount of lightning energy. You all saw it before." Hearing Xinyun's words and seeing his incomparably serious expression, Chu Bei's mouth twitched. This King's serious nonsense, and his face didn't even turn red. "Is this the style of your Wind Thunder Pavilion? I'm really impressed. I'm far from it." Chu Bei smiled and could not help but give Xinyun a thumbs up. "If you fancy him, then so be it. Why do you have to find a pretense to put yourself on the moral high ground and act sanctimonious?" Hearing this, Xinyun's face became even more gloomy. All of this was indeed a lie he had made up. When he saw Han Yu use the big hammer to restrain Hao Leichui, he had already decided that no matter what method he used, he had to obtain it. Of course, his biggest reliance was the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Although the Han family had some status in Tianbei City, in front of the Wind Thunder Pavilion, it was nothing. "This old man is too lazy to talk nonsense with you. I'll give you two choices now. 1. Hand over Hao Leichui and follow me back to Fonlei Beige. The North Pavilion Master will deal with you. 2. This old man will kill you on the spot and take Hao Leichui away." Xinyun was already impatient, and didn't want to talk to Chu Bei anymore. Hearing Xinyun's words, Hong Li's smile deepened. Han Chi and the rest of the Han family's faces became ugly. Chu Bei was involved in this trouble because of them. If he was really taken away by the Wind Thunder Pavilion, then the Han family would have an undeniable responsibility. As for the other people in the audience, they were more like watching a show. "Old Shen, this hammer came from Boss Chu. I'm afraid there's some misunderstanding. Why don't you first return to Fonlei Beige and confirm whether this hammer belongs to the stolen Hao Leichui?" Han Chi stepped forward and said. "Who do you think you are? Do I need you to interfere with the Wind Thunder Pavilion's matters?" Xinyun coldly looked at Han Chi. "If you don't want to involve the Han family, then stay on the side and shut up." Hearing Xinyun's reprimand, Han Chi couldn't help but clench his fists. But very quickly, the anger in his eyes was replaced by helplessness. He was the head of the Han family. Every word and action of his represented the Han family. He could be fearless of Xinyun, but he couldn't ignore the Wind Thunder Pavilion. "Head of the Han family, this indeed has nothing to do with you." Chu Bei lightly patted Han Chi's shoulder, then his eyes immediately fell back on Xinyun. "No one can take away my things, and I'm not interested in the Wind Thunder Pavilion." Chu Bei straightened his clothes, his voice especially calm. It seems you've chosen the second option. Xinyan's eyes narrowed, and his voice suddenly became low. You don't have the qualifications to make me choose. Facing Xinyan's gloomy and cold gaze, Chu Bei still had a calm and collected appearance. You're courting death. Looking at Chu Bei's playful expression, Xinyan's face became completely gloomy. As his cold voice fell, dense lightning suddenly surged out of his body. The energy fluctuations in these lightning bolts were hundreds of times stronger than that of Hong Chen. Hong Li carried the heavily injured Hong Chen in his arms at the first possible moment, and flew out of the combat arena as he was deeply afraid of being affected. Han Qi and Han Yu looked at each other, and also flew to the spectator area. If it was only Xinyan, they wouldn't be worried about Chu Bei. As Xinyan's aura rose, large cracks began to appear on the hard arena with him as the center. Densely packed lightning bolts danced in the air like dragons and snakes intertwining, crackling non-stop. Thunder whip! Looking at the lightning bolts that couldn't get close to Chu Bei, Xinyan's eyes flashed coldly. He clenched his hand, and lightning flashed, forming a thunder mace. Then, holding the thunder mace, he swept it towards Chu Bei. Wherever the thunder mace passed, the void distorted, and python-shaped lightning bolts loomed in the air with great momentum. Chu Bei calmly looked at Xinyan, who was attacking him. He did not care about the lightning truncheon that carried a terrifying might. Just as the thunder mace was about to hit Chu Bei, the Thor's hammer in Chu Bei's hand suddenly released a dazzling lightning bolt. In the next moment, Chu Bei lightly threw out Thor's hammer. The moment Thor's hammer left his hand, its speed increased dramatically. In a flash, it had already collided with Xinyan's thunder mace. A dragon roar sounded. On Thor's hammer, a huge brontosaurus was circling, swallowing and spitting out terrifying ball-shaped lightning bolts. In front of the brontosaurus, the python-shaped lightning bolts circling around the thunder mace seemed much more inferior. As the brontosaurus opened its mouth, it directly swallowed the python-shaped lightning bolts and the thunder mace. Then, with a swing of its tail, it slammed towards Xinyan. Bang! With a muffled sound, an old figure flew out in a sorry state. Xinyan, who had suffered a heavy blow, no longer had a superior attitude. His face was full of shock. The elder of the Wind Thunder Pavilion is injured. Who the hell is that guy? He's so strong. I'm afraid we'll have to ask the Han family. No wonder he's not afraid of Xinyan. Looking at the pale face of Xinyan, who still had blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, the spectators were shocked. The Hong family, including Hong Li, had a look of disbelief on their faces. They never thought that the guest of the Han family would be this strong. As for Han Qi and Han Yu and the others, they didn't have much of a reaction. This result was within their expectations. After all, when they were at Canaan College, Han Yu had personally witnessed Chu Bei easily kill a 9-star Dozong, not to mention a 5-star Dozong from Fenglai Beige. In the sky above the stage, Chu Bei waved his hand, and Thor's hammer flew back into his hand. When Chu Bei swung Thor's hammer again, the size of the hovering brontosaurus increased again, and a dragon's roar resounded through the sky. Looking at the huge mouth of the brontosaurus, Xinyan quickly regained his senses. After a moment of hesitation, he turned around. Then, he used all his strength to execute the 3,000 lightning haste and dashed away, leaving behind afterimages. What? You want to leave? Seeing Xinyan trying to escape, Chu Bei let out a cold laugh. The Thor's hammer in his hand casually swung in the air. In the next moment, the empty space 10,000 feet away suddenly distorted, and a solid spatial wall formed. Bang! At this moment, a figure crashed into the spatial wall that was covered with lightning. The strong rebound and the violent lightning energy caused Xinyan to spit out a mouthful of blood. His face became even paler, and his breath became extremely weak. I'm Fenglai Beige's fourth elders. Xinyan endured the pain and looked at Chu Bei again. Before he could finish his threatening words, the huge brontosaurus arrived in the blink of an eye. Boom! The dragon's roar, the sound of thunder, and the shrill scream intertwined, and finally turned into an earth-shattering explosion. After a long time, The sound of the explosion faded away. In the spectator stand, countless eyes stared at the center of the explosion, which had already turned into nothingness. A deathly silence. Retreat! Hong Li was the first to regain his senses. After looking at Chu Bei in the sky with fear, he hurriedly ordered the Hong family behind him. Brother Hong, take care. I won't send you off. Han Chi waved at the Han family members who were fleeing in panic. His words were filled with pride. Chu Bei glanced at the retreating Hong family army and ignored them, allowing them to leave. As the battle ended, the spectators in the spectator stand also left amidst intense discussions. Boss Chu, you killed Xingyun in front of so many people. Feng Lei Beige will probably find out about this very soon. Han Chi led the Han family members in front of Chu Bei. There was a hint of worry in his eyes. Overlords like them care a lot about their reputation. The possibility of them attacking our Han family is not high. But you, on the other hand, will probably be on their must-kill list. At this point, Han Chi took out a storage ring. Boss Chu, there's some money here. Why don't you leave immediately? Chu Bei glanced at the storage ring in front of him, smiled, and pushed it back. You should keep this money and continue to spin. I've said before that Feng Lei Beige is nothing. You don't need to worry about me. After saying this with a smile, Chu Bei calmly walked toward the little doctor and Xing Lin. Chifeng Mountain was located to the east of Tianbei City. The mountain was not big, but it was famous in the north of Zhongzhou and even the entire Zhongzhou. It was not because there were rumors of a phoenix descending on the mountain, but because it was the place where Feng Lei Beige stood. The Wind Thunder Pavilion was divided into 4 pavilions. The East Pavilion was the main pavilion, while the South, West, and North Pavilion were secondary. The East Pavilion was the most powerful, followed by the South, West, and North Pavilion. Even if the 4 pavilions were not together, any one of them could be considered a first-rate force in Zhongzhou. When the 4 pavilions were combined, they would be a giant in the north of Zhongzhou, a true first-rate force. From afar, the peak of Chifeng Mountain looked as if it had been split in half by a giant axe. Many buildings were hidden in the lush greenery. The most eye-catching building was the Silver Tower at the top of the mountain. The North Thunder Tower was Feng Lei Beige's holy land for cultivation. Only the disciples of the inner pavilion could enter to cultivate. At this moment, at the highest level of the tower, several people were sitting in their seats and looking at the main seat. Xinyan's spiritual thunder tablet has been broken. On the silver throne, a faint lightning glow spread in all directions along the chair. A human figure wearing silver robes was gently leaning against the back of the chair. A pair of silver-gray eyes slowly swept over the area below as a faint voice reverberated within the large hall. His voice was not loud, but it had a strong sense of oppression. No one dared to ignore it. What? Elder Yun's spiritual thunder tablet has been broken. What happened? In the north of Zhongzhou, who can kill him? As soon as the person on the silver throne finished speaking, he exclaimed in surprise. In particular, the 3 old men closest to the throne frowned. They looked at each other as if they could not believe this news. The 4 Pavilions conference is around the corner, and I can't leave. I'll leave the investigation of Xingyun's death to you. The man on the silver throne tilted his head and looked at the 3 old men. You must settle this matter before the 4 Pavilions conference. I don't want to implicate the entire Wind Thunder Pavilion and become the laughingstock of the other 3 pavilions because of the death of my North Pavilion's elder. The 4 Pavilions conference here was naturally not the 4 pavilions of the Wind Thunder Pavilion, but the 4 pavilions of the 1 Tower, 1 Hall, 2 Sects, and 3 Valleys Square Pavilion. Yes. The 3 old men stood up and bowed to the man on the throne. With a move, they turned into lightning and disappeared. I just returned from outside the city and found that many strong people I have never seen before are heading toward Fengqi Mountain. What's going on? Wasn't it like this 3 days ago? This year's 4 Pavilions conference is held in the Wind Thunder Pavilion, and it's Feng Lei Beige. Oh my God! When will the conference start? Doesn't that mean that we will be lucky enough to see the strong people of the other 3 pavilions? If my calculations aren't wrong, It should officially start the day after tomorrow. Moreover, the 4 pavilion masters will all be present at the 4 Pavilions Conference every year. On the main street of Tianbei City, a group of people gathered together. Just as the discussion about the 4 Pavilions Conference was intense, 3 rainbows streaked across the sky. Look at the sky! Who are those people? The 3 great elders of Feng Lei Beige, Feng, Lei, and Dian. The guest elder of the Han family killed Elder Yun this morning. They must be here for that. Look at the direction they are heading. They are indeed heading toward the Han family. Let's go and take a look. There's a good show to watch. In the city, more and more cultivators noticed the 3 figures flying quickly in the sky. After being stunned for a moment, they all rushed toward the Han family. At the same time, in an exquisite room of the Han house, Chu Bei was feeling the strength in his body increase by another star. With the help of Han Qi, he had once again reached the limit of what he could sell today. His cultivation had also jumped from a 6-star dose zone to a 7-star dose zone. Rumble! Suddenly, a loud sound resounded in the sky above the Han house. Immediately, 3 powerful and majestic auras enveloped the entire Han house. When the 3 auras appeared, the Han house immediately fell into an uproar. The strong people of the Han family who were originally training raised their heads to look at the sky. When they saw the appearance of the 3 figures, their faces suddenly sank. They came so quickly. Han Qi slowly walked out of the hall and glanced at the 3 old men who were already standing in the sky above the Han house. He frowned and rose into the sky. Due to the large movement of the 3 elders of Feng Lei Beige, the empty space around the Han house was quickly filled with people. There were even some Do Wangs who directly flew into the sky to watch from afar. Chapter 112. The 3 of you should be the Feng, Lei, and Dian elders of Feng Lei Beige, right? Han Qi flew into the sky and cupped his hands towards the 3 elders. Where is the guy who killed Xinyun? One of the elders coldly glanced at Han Qi. It's not easy for your Han family to stand tall in Tianbei City for hundreds of years. It's best if you don't interfere in some matters. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the name of the Han family will disappear from Tianbei City. Hearing the elder's threatening words, Han Qi frowned and his face became gloomy. Han family head, it's best if you don't interfere in my matters. Just as Han Qi was about to say something, a voice with a hint of laughter drifted from the sky. Immediately after, Chu Bei stepped forward and appeared beside Han Qi. You're the one who killed Xinyun? The 3 elders' gazes focused on Chu Bei at the same time, their eyes filled with killing intent. You want to avenge him? Chu Bei put his hands behind his back and looked at the 3 elders with a mocking expression. Hearing this, the 3 elders' expressions changed. After checking Chu Bei's aura to no avail, they looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. In the next moment, the 3 elders shouted at the same time. As the shout fell, bright lightning surged out from their bodies. The lightning flashed and turned into a thunderbolt that shot into the sky. In an instant, the originally clear sky was filled with dark clouds. Following the 3 old men's complicated hand seals, countless bolts of lightning descended from the sky, densely packed like a prison, completely enveloping the space within a radius of 300 meters around Chu Bei. When the 3 elders finished forming the seal, the prison formed by the intertwining thunderbolts instantly grew several times larger. Its power was extremely terrifying. Looking at the 3 elders, each of their palms had a bolt of lightning that shot into the prison. It seemed to be the source of the prison's power. This is the 9 Heavenly Thunder Prison Formation, one of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's strongest killing formations. It requires 3 5-star dose zones and above to be used. In the sky, some of the Do Wangs with good eyesight who were hiding in the distance were stunned when they recognized the formation that the 3 elders had used. Han Qi's brows were tightly knit together. Even though he was a 4-star dose zone, the energy fluctuation from the Lei Lao still caused his heart to palpitate. Involuntarily, when Han Qi looked at the calm Chu Bei, there was an additional trace of worry in his eyes. Ever since the 3 of us have become elders, we have never worked together to deal with a single person. The Do Zone, Chu Bei's do zone, Chu Bei's lay do zone, do zone. The do zone zones do zone was do zone zone, do do, do do zone, do do zone does, do lay do do does. You people from the Wind Thunder Pavilion have a similar characteristic. Chu Bei smiled as he looked at the three elders. What characteristic? Curiosity surfaced in the eyes of the three elders. Noisy. Chu Bei's smile deepened. Heavenly thunder technique. The curiosity in the eyes of the three elders was instantly replaced by killing intent. As the orderly roar of cold in the forest fell, countless python-like thunderbolts formed in the Lei Lao and struck at Chu Bei from all directions. Its vast power caused one's heart to tremble. Chu Bei's expression did not change. With a wave of his sleeve, 3 different colored flames revolved around him. The terrifying python-like thunderbolts were swallowed by the flames before they could even get within 1 meter of Chu Bei. What a strange flame! Seeing the python-like thunderbolts being swallowed, the 3 elders frowned. Their gazes landed on the 3 balls of flames that revolved around Chu Bei. Could it be a heavenly flame? When the last python was swallowed by the flames, one of the elders exclaimed, "You have a good eye." Chu Bei's calm voice sounded. Heavenly thunder cut! After recovering from the shock, the 3 elders quickly regained their composure. They looked at each other and formed seals again. Suddenly, countless thunderbolts gathered together in the Lei Lao and formed a sharp blade. In terms of power, it was far above the previous python. Swoosh! The sharp blade of thunder flashed past. Just as it was about to hit Chu Bei, the 3 balls of heavenly flame in front of him intertwined and formed a huge 3-colored firewolf. Under countless shocked gazes, the 3-colored firewolf opened its huge mouth and bit the sharp blade of thunder. Then, the 3-colored fire swallowed and extinguished the sharp blade of thunder. Seeing the attack being neutralized again, the 3 elders' faces were completely gloomy. Hesitation emerged in their eyes. What? Is this all you've got? Chu Bei glanced at the 3 elders and clenched his right hand slightly. The 3 balls of heavenly flame intertwined again and became more even. The 3-colored fire wolf disappeared and turned into a 3-colored fire lotus. When the fire lotus was formed, a terrifying destructive force spread out. Black cracks began to appear in the void like a spider web. Gradually, the 3-colored fire lotus began to rotate. As its rotation speed increased, the surrounding void cracks became bigger and bigger. Feeling the energy fluctuation contained in the fire lotus, the 3 elders' faces were obviously filled with fear. After hesitating for a while, the 3 elders took a deep breath at the same time. They seemed to have made a decision that they were extremely unwilling to do. Fury of blood and thunder! Blood beads seeped out of the 3 elders' bodies and flowed into the Lei Lao along the energy beam in their palms. Rumble. With the blood essence of the 3 elders, the Lei Lao seemed to have undergone a qualitative change. The rolling thunderbolts in it all turned into the color of blood. In the deafening roar, the rolling thunderbolts evolved into a blood-colored giant axe. Countless lightning snakes were jumping around it. Die! As the 3 elders shouted, the blood-colored giant axe slashed at Chu Bei. At this moment, the 3 elders' faces were pale as if the strength in their bodies had been sucked out. Facing the blood-colored giant axe, Chu Bei's expression still did not change. With a wave of his hand, the high-speed spinning 3-colored fire lotus met it. Boom! Under countless gazes, the blood-colored axe and the fire lotus collided with a bang. At this moment, except for the terrifying explosion when the 2 collided, the world was silent. At the place where the 2 collided, the dazzling energy light wave took away everyone's sight. As the explosion faded, the dazzling light faded. When everyone could see the scene of the battlefield again, the blood-colored giant axe had disappeared. Only Chu Bei, who had not changed his expression from the beginning to the end, and the 3 elders who were swallowed by the 3-colored flame, and could not even scream. In the sizzling sound of burning, under countless horrified gazes, the 3 elders were burned into nothingness by the flame. The world became increasingly deathly silent. Chu Bei ignored the surrounding spectators. After retrieving the 3 clusters of heavenly flames, he once again returned to the Han house. The 3 elders, Feng, Lei, and Dian, were also killed by him. In just one day, 4 elders of Feng Lei Beige have died. What a great loss! Looking at the battlefield where Chu Bei was originally at, the crowd of spectators finally recovered after a long time. They faced each other. Chifeng Mountain, North Lightning Tower. On the leader's seat, the silver-robed man was arranging the matters of the 4-pavilion meeting. Suddenly, 3 clear sounds were emitted from behind him. When he heard the clear sounds, the silver-robed man's face suddenly sunk. How is this possible? Elder Feng, Elder Lei, and Elder Dian are also dead. Was it also done by the fellow who killed Elder Yun? When the 3 elders attacked together, they could form the 9 heavenly lightning prison formation. Has that fellow already reached such a terrifying stage? Don't tell me that he is an elite Dozun. It was not just the silver-robed man in the leader's seat. The other people on the seats beside him also saw the 3 shattered soul tablets. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Clearly, they were unable to accept the fact that the 3 elders had died. Pavilion Chief, what should we do now? An elder opened his mouth and asked. Let's deal with the 4-pavilion meeting first. The silver-robed man clenched his fists tightly. He did his best to suppress the killing intent in his eyes. When the 3 elders of Feng, Lei, and Dian joined hands and formed the 9 heavenly lightning prison formation, even he could only fight them without being defeated. However, that person of unknown origin was able to kill the 3 elders of Feng, Lei, and Dian by himself. In other words, even if he personally went there, it was likely that he would not be able to kill the other party. His ending might even be the same as the 3 elders of Feng, Lei, and Dian. On the other side, Chu Bei had returned to his residence, and was comfortably enjoying Qing Lin's massage while recalling the earlier battle. Currently, his cultivation was a 7-star dozone. Using his own strength to activate the heavenly flame, his fighting strength was already equivalent to a peak dozone. Ta! A wave of footsteps approached from afar. Han Qi and his 2 daughters walked into the house. You can say whatever you want to say. Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Han Qi and his 2 daughters who wanted to say something but were hesitating. Boss Chu, can you tell us what your cultivation is? Have you already broken through to the Dozun realm? Han Yu finally could not help but open her mouth and said, The Central Province 4-pavilion meeting is being held by the Wind Thunder Pavilion this time. The location has been set at the Chifeng Mountain where Feng Lei Beige is located. Every year, the 4-pavilion chiefs will be present at the 4-pavilion meeting. I think that this time will be no exception. It is rumored that the 4-pavilion chiefs are all at the Dozun realm. You have killed the 4 great elders of Feng Lei Beige. If the Dozun of the Wind Thunder Pavilion finds out about this matter, he will definitely not let it go. I am worried that you... Hearing this, Chu Bei already understood Han Yu's meaning. He waved his hand and interrupted her. Don't worry, they can't do anything to me. As for my cultivation, you will find out one day. When he killed Xingyun, Chu Bei already had a plan in mind. Although his current authority could only allow him to exchange for level 8 goods, when he obtained the Sea Heart Flame, the system rewarded him with the right to use level 9 goods. If it really came to a critical moment, he would use this privilege to get rid of all the hidden dangers at once. The system will activate the mysteries of the Heaven's Meat Pagoda for the first time for the host. This time, the 7th and 8th floors of the Opportunity Tower will be activated. The price of admission to the tower will be 5 million for the 7th floor and 10 million for the 8th floor. The willpower obtained from the Opportunity Tower will be returned to the host by half. The location of the Opportunity Tower will be randomly selected within a 300-mile radius from the host's current location. The Opportunity Tower is being activated. Progress 1%. At this moment, a series of system notifications rang in Chu Bei's mind. Chu Bei was stunned at first. When he came back to his senses, he quickly checked the system interface. He saw that there was a new page about the Opportunity Tower on the system interface. Chapter 113. Chu Bei skimmed through the description of the Opportunity Pagoda. When he finished reading, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. In his heart, he silently gave the system a one-word evaluation: conscience. As long as the Mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda was used properly, the money earned would definitely be much more than the first Heavens auction. But soon, Chu Bei seemed to have thought of something and frowned. After the Opportunity Pagoda is activated, the system will arrange for Xiao Hei's clone to be at the host's disposal. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded again. Hearing the voice, Chu Bei's brows relaxed. The system seemed to be able to hear his thoughts and directly solved his worries. The activation of the Heavens Pagoda would definitely attract many strong fighters, including Do Zuns. From what he could see, in front of a Do Zun, the only thing he could rely on was the one-time use of a level 9 product. But this level 9 product used right was his life-saving charm. If he really used the Opportunity Pagoda to earn money and used the level 9 product used right, it would be a loss. It was hard to say whether it would be a gain or a loss. Fortunately, the system's second voice helped him solve this problem. Speaking of Xiao Hei, Chu Bei thought of the iron lump in the shop that even the system didn't judge. Although the system only arranged for a clone this time, from the system's previous style, even a clone was not simple. "Boss Chu, what are you thinking about?" Noticing that Chu Bei was distracted, Han Yu couldn't help but ask curiously. Chu Bei shook his head and said, "If you don't have anything else, you can all go back." The next day. "Have you heard? A treasure has appeared in the outer area of the Heaven Eye Mountain." "Treasure? What treasure?" "I heard that it was discovered early this morning. It's a natural phenomenon." "I heard about it too. It seems that many strong fighters have rushed over after hearing the news. Among them, there are many Do Wangs and above." "What's a Do Wangs? Do you know about the Square Pavilion meeting?" "They've all been alerted. I just don't know what kind of treasure it is. Who will get it in the end? With the Square Pavilion, the Hong family and Han family have no hope, let alone us." "That may be the case, but that doesn't stop us from joining in the fun." In Tianbei City, there was another topic of discussion on the streets and alleys. It was about the appearance of a treasure in the periphery of the Heaven Eye mountain range. At the same time, in Chu Bei's residence in the Han house, Han Qi and his two daughters were already waiting outside the door. "Han family head, you're quite proactive. It's early in the morning and you're already here to spin the plates." Chu Bei opened the door and greeted Han Qi. "Boss Chu, you've misunderstood." Han Qi shook his head and quickly told Chu Bei about the sudden appearance of the treasure in the Heaven Eye Mountain. A natural phenomenon? After hearing Han Qi's words, Chu Bei was stunned for a moment. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and immediately checked the system interface. As expected, a small map appeared on the page of the Mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda. There was a red dot on the map, and the location marked by the red dot was the Heaven Eye mountain range. The red dot represented the Mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda. In other words, the treasure in the Heaven Eye mountain range that had caused a huge uproar today was the Mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda. "Boss Chu, should we go and take a look? The Hong family has already gone there." Han Qi looked at Chu Bei and let him make the decision. "Of course." Chu Bei replied without hesitation. After saying that, Chu Bei quickly left the house and flew in the direction of the Heaven Eye mountain. Looking at the impatient Chu Bei, Han Qi and Han Yu looked at each other and quickly chased after him. The Heaven Eye mountain. Although it was a mountain in name, it was actually a continuous mountain range that surrounded the northern and eastern regions of the central region. In the mountain range, there was no lack of level 7 and 8 magical beasts. There were even rumors that there were level 9 magical beasts in the deepest part of the mountain range. Because there were high-level magical beasts in the Heaven Eye mountain range, there were usually very few people. But today, there were many people moving around the outskirts of the mountain range. From time to time, one could see groups of 3 to 5 people flying in the same direction. In the distant sky, one could see Do Wangs and above flapping their Do Qi wings. Occasionally, one could even see Do Zongs flying in the air without using their Do Qi wings. At the same time, in the outskirts of the Heavenai Mountain, 100 kilometers away from Tianbei City, there was an inverted cone-shaped kernel. There was a huge 7-colored spherical cover around the kernel. At this moment, with the call as the center, there were figures everywhere within a 3-kilometer radius. The auras of the leaders of these factions were becoming increasingly powerful from the outside to the inside. This was especially true for the leaders of the factions at the edge of the kernel. All of them were elite dozongs. Among the factions at the edge of the call, there were 4 factions that were especially special. These 4 factions occupied nearly 80% of the area. Everyone in the first faction was wearing silver robes. On the chest of their robes, there was a badge with a thunderbolt imprinted on it. The leader was Fei Tian, the pavilion chief of Fonlei Beige. The second faction also had a badge imprinted on the chest of their robes. However, it was an image of 3 swords stacked together. Elder Shui, he barged into our territory and killed Junior Mu. A disciple pointed at Chu Bei and immediately said. Shui Hai glanced at the corpse on the ground. When he looked at Chu Bei again, the aura of a 5-star Do Wang erupted. In the next moment, a purple-red long sword appeared in Shui Hai's hand. The long sword vibrated and a sharp sword aura traversed the air and swept toward Chu Bei. Chu Bei indifferently glanced at Shui Hai. Almost at the same time, he pointed his finger like a sword and shot out a sharp energy. Chi La! With a buzzing sound, the sword aura was easily destroyed. Before Shui Feng could react, the energy that Chu Bei shot out had already pierced through his body, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Putong! Shui Feng loudly fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Elder Shui is dead! Impossible! This is impossible! Elder Shui is a 5-star Dowang. How could he die so easily? Who exactly is he? How dare he look down on our Wind Thunder Pavilion? Looking at Shui Feng's corpse on the ground, the expressions of the Wind Thunder Pavilion's disciples suddenly froze. After recovering from their daze, they all looked at Chu Bei in horror. Their elder had been killed right under their noses. Although most of the disciples of the Wind Lightning Pavilion already knew that the 4 great elders of the Northern Pavilion, Feng, Lei, Dian, and Yun, had been killed by a mysterious person, they naturally would not connect him to Chu Bei because they had never seen the appearance of the mysterious person. The huge commotion finally attracted the attention of a circle of experts at the edge of the kernel. Brother Fei, there seems to be some trouble on your side, Wanjian Pavilion's Jianheng said with a smile. He extended his hand and pointed at the Wind Thunder Pavilion's disciples who were constantly moving away from Chu Bei. Fei Tian ignored Jianheng and focused his eyes on Chu Bei. He flipped his right palm and a terrifying energy palm blasted toward Chu Bei. However, this energy palm was blocked by another invisible force when it was 1 meter away from Chu Bei. Following which, it turned into a cluster of air and disappeared with a bang. Huh! Seeing this, Fei Tian frowned. Although he did not use his full strength in that palm, one would at least need to be a dozong to receive it unscathed. Not only Fei Tian, but Jianheng, Yuhong, Sherbin, and the other 3 pavilion heads also revealed surprised expressions. Clearly, they did not expect Chu Bei to be able to resolve Fei Tian's palm. On the other hand, the other factions in Tianbei City, including the Hong family, recognized Chu Bei at a glance. He actually came! He killed 2 people from the Wind Thunder Pavilion the moment he arrived. He really does not put the Wind Thunder Pavilion in his eyes. He killed the 3 elders of the Wind, Thunder, and Lightning Pavilion by himself. His strength is the reason for his arrogance. Looks like he has also come for the treasure that has yet to take shape in the light film. The experts from the various factions in Tianbei City looked at Chu Bei and began to discuss. So the person who killed Xingyun and the other 3 is you. Catching the information from the conversations in the air, Fei Tian once again looked at Chu Bei with eyes filled with killing intent. Chapter 114. What? He is the one who killed the 4 great elders of the Wind, Thunder, Lightning, and Cloud Pavilion. No wonder he dared to kill our Wind Thunder Pavilion's elders in front of so many people. In the Wind Thunder Pavilion area, the disciples of the Wind Thunder Pavilion once again looked at Chubei. Other than hatred, there was more fear in their eyes. Every time Chubei took a step forward, the disciples of the Wind Thunder Pavilion around him would quickly retreat by dozens of steps, as if they were afraid that the former would suddenly attack. Shio shio shio. At this moment, a number of air-breaking sounds appeared in the sky. Following which, the Do Wangs of the Han family led by Han Qi landed and followed closely behind Chubei. If they did not have the intention to kill me, how would I have killed them? Chubei smiled as he looked at Fei Tian, the pavilion chief of Fonlei Beige. He quickly arrived at the edge of the call and occupied an area. I am very curious, which faction do you come from? Being able to kill the 4 great elders of the North Pavilion, I think that you are not unknown in the Central Plains. Fei Tian narrowed his eyes and coldly stared at Chubei. From his point of view, Chubei was an old monster who had lived for at least a few hundred years. The reason why he looked so young was only because he had changed his appearance. It was also because he was afraid of Chubei's strength that even though he had the intention to kill, he forcefully endured it and did not make a move. At the edge of the call, the other 3 pavilions, as well as the experts from other factions, shifted their gazes back and forth between Fei Tian and Chubei. Their expressions were as if they were watching a show. I don't have any background. I am just an ordinary merchant. Meeting Fei Tian's gaze, Chubei shrugged and said calmly, Merchant? Fei Tian's expression became ugly. He thought that Chubei was playing with him and said in a deep voice, Then what do you sell? If you really want to know, let's sit down and have some tea when you're free and talk about it slowly. After saying that, Chubei ignored Fei Tian and stared at the colorful ball of light in the valley. Rumble! Just as Fei Tian was about to say something, the huge 7-colored ball of light suddenly shook, and a deafening sound came from it. What's that sound? Could it be that a treasure is about to be born? I wonder what kind of treasure it is. As the sound from the rainbow ball grew louder and louder, the entire mountain valley began to shake violently as if an earthquake had occurred. The group of experts stabilized themselves. Not only was there no panic on their faces, but there was also a strong sense of anticipation. Even the murderous Fei Tian shifted his attention from Chubei to the ball of light. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress 89%. Chubei immediately checked the system interface when he saw the ball of light begin to vibrate slightly. Just as the activation bar reached 90%, a glaring beam of light suddenly shot out from the top of the huge ball of light. The beam of light shot into the sky and extended far away. Immediately after, a gorgeous 7-colored stream of light appeared on the surface of the ball of light. When the stream of light entered the body, it instantly made one feel refreshed and comfortable. Look! What are those? It's really a phenomenon! Gradually, the light film began to become transparent, and they could vaguely see part of the scene inside the ball of light. All kinds of divine beasts could be seen galloping and dancing. However, these divine beasts were not in their true forms. Instead, they were like illusions or projections. Not long after they appeared, they would dissipate and new divine beasts would appear. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress 96%. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress 97%. Activating the Opportunities Tower. Progress 98%. In the system interface, the Opportunities Tower's progress was increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When the progress reached 100%, there was a loud bang and the huge ball of light in the valley exploded. The glaring divine light instantly enveloped the entire area within 100 miles. Fortunately, this glaring divine light did not cause any harm to the human body. It would only temporarily deprive people of their vision. Kacha, kacha! A crisp, shattering sound rang in countless people's ears. Although they could not see everything around them clearly, they could guess that this was the 7-colored ball of light shattering. As time passed, the glaring divine light gradually dissipated, and everyone's vision became clear again. This is... When the group of powerhouses saw the scene in the valley clearly, they could not help but open their mouths and stare in shock. This was a gigantic object that was as tall as the clouds. Its bottom took up 90% of the huge valley, and it gradually closed in from the bottom to the top. However, it was not obvious that it was closing in. If one did not look closely, they would even think that this was a gigantic object that was always the same height and width. It was like a tower, but it was impossible to tell how many levels it had. This was because other than the 8 levels that could be seen with the naked eye, everything above was shrouded by a mysterious force and could not be seen clearly. As for the 8 floors that could be seen with the naked eye, each floor had 8 corners, and each corner had a small and exquisite statue of a divine beast. The walls of the pagoda were also engraved with mysterious and strange patterns that dazzled the eyes. How can it be a tower? The group of powerhouses gradually recovered from their shock and stared blankly at the gigantic object in the valley. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Originally, they had expected that this ball of light would be born from a rare spiritual plant, or a spiritual milk of heaven and earth that had taken tens of thousands of years to form, or a heavenly flame, or some other natural treasure. Who would have thought that it would be a strange gigantic tower? Looking carefully, there were 8 tightly shut doors on each of the 8 floors that could be seen, and they just so happened to correspond to the 8 corners of the room. However, the difference was that the doors on the 7th and 8th levels were emitting a faint purple light, while the doors on the 1st to 6th levels were not different at all. At the same time that the gigantic tower appeared, a human-shaped iron lump appeared beside Chu Bei. "Boss Chu, what is this?" Han Yu, who was the first to notice the iron lump, could not help but exclaim. "It's something that I made in my spare time." Chu Bei glanced at the iron lump beside him. Just from the appearance alone, it was exactly the same as Xiao Hei's real body in the shop. "Boss, isn't this the big guy in the corner of the shop? When did you bring it out?" The little fairy doctor and Qing Lin, who had just arrived in the flying ship, immediately saw Xiao Hei's clone. Their beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. In their memories, they did not bring this big guy with them when they left. Even the powerhouses of the 4 pavilions would have a hard time taking this tower away. Who said that we have to take it away? We can totally occupy this area and use it as a foundation to build a branch pavilion. But then again, what exactly is this tower used for? I'm afraid we can only find out after we enter the tower. Why don't we go in and take a look? The people in the square pavilion haven't even moved yet, and you're already in front of them. Aren't you courting death? Beside the call, a group of powerhouses began to discuss intensely. At the same time, regardless of whether it was the Wind Thunder Pavilion's Fei Tian, Wanjian Pavilion's Jianheng, or the other 2 deputy pavilion heads, all of them extended a thread of divine consciousness toward the huge tower and the colonel. How can this be? What shocked Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the other leaders of the square pavilion was that the divine consciousness they sent toward the huge tower did not return. Not only the 4 of them, but the powerhouses from the other factions, such as Hong Li, also sent out their divine consciousness. The result was the same. Immediately, the faces of the powerhouses became a little more solemn. Unknown things often had unpredictable risks. Even the eyes of the 8-star Do Zongs like Fei Tian and Jianheng had an additional caution. "Xiao!" The Huangquan Pavilion's deputy pavilion head, Yu Hong, rose into the air and flew toward the distant sky. Seeing this, Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the other powerhouses seemed to have understood Yu Hong's intention. After being momentarily stunned, they also flew toward the sky. When the group of Do Wangs arrived in the sky, the shock on their faces became even greater. They had originally wanted to see the entire tower from the sky. Unexpectedly, no matter how high they flew, they were unable to see the top of the tower. The energy that wrapped around the 9th floor of the huge tower seemed to have penetrated the sky. It was so high that it could not be reached. Helpless, Yu Hong, Fei Tian, and the others could only once again descend to the edge of the colonel. "Brother Fei, since you said that your Wind Thunder Pavilion was the first to discover this tower, I'll give you the first opportunity to enter the tower." The Huangquan Pavilion's deputy pavilion head Yu Hong opened his mouth and said, "Brother, you really knows how to joke. Didn't you say that it is not in the area of my Wind Thunder Pavilion? It's all for the capable." Fei Tian looked at Yu Hong and said with a smile, "Why don't we give you the opportunity to enter the tower first?" Instantly, the powerhouses of the square pavilion gave way to each other, hoping that the other three parties could enter the tower first. Unfortunately, regardless of whether it was Fei Tian, Yu Hong, or the other two pavilion heads, all of them were experienced and did not want to be the first to enter the tower. After all, the appearance of this huge tower was too strange. No one knew how dangerous it was. "Why don't we go together?" In the end, after giving way to each other, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and the other two decided to enter the tower together. After making the decision, the four of them looked at each other. Then, their figures flashed at the same time and flew toward the huge tower. However, before the four of them could get close to the huge tower, a figure stood in front of them and blocked their path. "What do you mean by this?" Fei Tian stopped and coldly looked at Chu Bei in front of him. A murderous intent once again surfaced in his eyes. "Don't tell me that you want to enter the tower with us? If that's the case, we don't mind," Yu Hong of the Huangquan Pavilion said as he sized up Chu Bei. Chu Bei's gaze swept across Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and the other two. He shook his head and said, "This tower is not somewhere you can enter as you wish." Yu Hong frowned slightly. "From what you've said, it seems that you know this tower? Could it be that there's really danger inside?" Chu Bei smiled and shook his head again. "Not only is there no danger inside, but there are also endless opportunities. Therefore, this tower has a name, the Tower of Opportunities. Since there's no danger, why can't we enter?" Hearing Chu Bei's words, Yu Hong and the others were overjoyed. "I said you can't enter because this tower has an owner. If you want to enter the tower, you have to follow my rules and get my permission." Chu Bei looked calmly at Yu Hong and the other three. Although his voice was not loud, it clearly reached the ears of everyone near the colonel. "What? That guy actually said that this tower has an owner. And it's his. Is he joking? So many of us saw it with our own eyes. This should be just an excuse he found to occupy this tower. Then we'll have to see if he alone has the ability to get past the square pavilion." Chu Bei's words instantly caused an uproar near the colonel. The words of the surrounding experts were filled with dissatisfaction. Boss Chu's style of doing things this time is somewhat similar to that of Xin Yun. Looking at Chu Bei, who was blocking the path of Fei Tian and the other three in midair, Han Chi's eyes showed some worry. The appearance of this giant tower was something he had warned the other party early in the morning. On the other hand, Little Doctor and Qing Lin looked at each other with puzzlement on their faces. This was because in their opinion, Chu Bei had everything. Moreover, based on their understanding of Chu Bei, he was not the kind of person who would claim that an ownerless object was his. "Are you joking with us?" Fei Tian's cold in the forest gaze was fixed on Chu Bei. "The anomaly in this call was first discovered by the disciples of the Wind Thunder Pavilion. As for this tower, we saw it appear with our own eyes. Now you're saying that this tower is yours? Brother Fei, why are you wasting your breath on this kind of guy?" Wanjian Pavilion's Jianheng looked at Chu Bei expressionlessly. After a cold snort, he flipped his right hand, and a red thin sword appeared in his palm. Under the gaze of several people, Jianheng slapped the end of the sword's hilt with his palm. Suddenly, the sword swept toward Chu Bei like lightning. Just as the thin sword was about to hit Chu Bei, it suddenly split into 9. In a moment, 9 identical thin swords were distributed in a ring, surrounding Chu Bei in the middle. Then, the tips of the 9 long swords flashed with silver light at the same time, and sword rays appeared. Immediately, the space around Chu Bei suddenly distorted a little. Soon after, a purple fog appeared rapidly, and finally condensed into a purple prison more than a foot thick. The inner surface of the prison was densely covered with sharp sword rays, and the buzzing sound was frightening. "This is the 9 swords cage?" As soon as the purple prison appeared, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and the others blurted out in surprise. "Brother Jian, I didn't expect you to have already learned this move." It seems that you're not far from advancing to the next level. Xingyun Gushibin looked at Jianheng and said. Wanjian Pavilion mainly focused on swordsmanship. There were several famous sword moves in the pavilion, and the 9 Swords cage was one of them. Your Excellency, you can stay inside for now. Jianheng looked at Chu Bei mockingly, and then looked at Fei Tian and the others. Let's go inside the tower and see what opportunities there are. However, just as Jianheng finished speaking and before he could move, a 2-meter-tall human-shaped metal lump appeared out of thin air beside Chu Bei in the 9 Swords cage. The human iron lump slowly raised his right arm and casually punched. Boom! However, it was this seemingly light and soft punch that directly ignored the sharp purple sword light and hit the prison wall. First, there was a loud bang, and then there was the crisp sound of something shattering. In just a few seconds, the foot-thick purple prison layer shattered, turning into countless pieces of purple light and disappearing. Witnessing this scene, the mockery in Jianheng's eyes was instantly replaced by shock, and there was even some suspicion on his face. He suspected that there was something wrong with the 9 Swords cage. Fei Tian and the others beside him were also shocked, and their faces were full of disbelief. Chapter 115. The 9-sword prison was one of the profound sword techniques of Wanjian Pavilion. Only those who had broken through to the Dozong class had the right to practice it. With Jianheng's strength, even an 8-star Dozong would not be able to break it in a short period of time. However, this iron lump, who had appeared out of nowhere, was able to completely shatter it with just one punch. In the air, Jianheng regained his calm. He glanced at the smiling Chu Bei and waved his right hand. Once again, a long sword appeared in his hand. Compared to the thin purple sword that had used the 9-sword prison, this long sword was clearly more exquisite. Jianheng held the long sword in his hand and began to dance. Every time the long sword was swung, a huge force would condense at the tip of the sword. This force continued to accumulate until the golden sword light at the tip was as bright as the sun. This is the 9-sword style stacked sword. Seeing Jianheng's dancing figure and the increasingly sharp sword force, Fei Tian and the other 2 exclaimed once again. The 9-sword style was a sword technique that only the pavilion master and the vice pavilion master of Wanjian Pavilion could practice. It was extremely difficult to practice. Even among the pavilion masters, there were very few who could practice it to its peak. The reason why the Wanjian Pavilion's 9-sword style was so famous was because the pavilion master who had created this sword technique had once killed a 7-star Dozong with the cultivation of a 4-star Dozong who had crossed 3 small realms. The stacked sword was the move with the strongest killing force in the 9-sword style. Chu Bei calmly looked at Jianheng and felt the sword force on his sword. The stacked sword that his opponent had used was similar to the heaven-defying 7-demon blade in terms of concept. As the number of times Jianheng brandished the long sword in his hand increased, the golden light at the tip of the sword increased. When the sword force rose to the peak, the sword light actually intertwined into a flood dragon that seemed to be cast in gold. Let me see what you're capable of! As soon as his voice fell, Jianheng's figure flashed forward with the long sword in his hand. The tip of the sword pointed directly at Chu Bei. The tip of the sword vibrated, and the golden Jiao dragon formed by the sword light was the first to pounce on Chu Bei with lightning speed. In the face of such a murderous attack, Chu Bei's emotions did not fluctuate in the slightest, nor did he make any movements. Whoosh! The iron lump moved again. Turning into a black streak of light, he charged forward and threw out a punch. On the battlefield, the pitch-black fist collided with the golden Jiao dragon's mouth. Bang! Amidst the loud noise, the collision area was like a firework, extremely gorgeous. The terrifying shockwaves spread out like waves, causing the air to sizzle. In the next moment, the pitch-black fist pierced through the golden Jiao dragon with its mouth wide open. The energy from the fist landed on Jianheng's chest. Puchi! Caught off guard, Jianheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale. His figure was like a cannonball as he smashed into the ground, creating a deep crater. The golden Jiao dragon had also turned into a rain of light and dissipated into the void. So powerful! What the hell is that thing? With just one punch, not only did it break the attack of the Wanjian Pavilion's deputy pavilion master, but it also seriously injured him. It should be a puppet. Even a puppet is so powerful. How terrifying is that guy's cultivation? With such strength, no wonder he dares to snatch the things that the square pavilion wants. Around the call, the cultivators who had witnessed the entire process were all agati. Their faces were filled with shock. In the air, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and Sherbin regained their senses and looked at the iron lump, who had returned to Chu Bei's side. Their eyes were filled with fear. So this big guy is so powerful! If one were to say who was the most astonished, it would be the little fairy doctor and Qing Lin. Ever since they had moved into the All Heavens shop, they had been in contact with Xiao Hei every day after cleaning the place. They had even used him as a rag rack. They had never imagined that the iron lump, who they used as a rag rack, could not only move, but also have such terrifying strength. Thinking of this, the little doctor and Qing Lin looked at each other with lingering fear. Fortunately, the iron lump did not hold it against them. Otherwise, they would have been smashed into meat paste. I already said that this thing has an owner. Don't covet it. Chu Bei glanced at Jianheng, who had flown back to the battlefield from the crater with his chest caved in. Seeing Xiao Hei's doppelganger attack, Chu Bei suddenly realized the problem. Every time the iron lump attacked, he would only severely injure his opponent, and would not kill them with a single blow. Back in Wutan City, when Xiao Hei attacked Ling Ying, he had also spared his opponent's life. Now, this Xiao Hei's doppelganger did the same. However, there was one thing in common. Whether it was Xiao Hei or his doppelganger, they had all only used one punch. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Jianheng did not respond. Instead, he took out a jade pendant with a blood thread on it from his storage ring and crushed it. Seeing this, Fei Tian, Yu Hong, and Sherbin looked at each other before also taking out small jade pendants and crushing them. Are they calling for reinforcements? Chu Bei could see the intentions of Jianheng and the others, and he could also guess the identity of the people who would be coming. After all, Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the other two's statuses were already below only one person in the Four Directions Pavilion. Boom! In just a few short seconds, a huge thunderbolt suddenly swept down from the clouds above Fei Tian and the others. The strong light in that instant caused the people around the call to instinctively close their eyes. Chu Bei raised his eyes slightly and looked at the place where the huge thunderbolt appeared. He saw a figure slowly walking out. It was a tall man wearing a silver robe. The silver robe was covered with lightning patterns. From afar, it looked like a living creature that was constantly flowing. There was also a faint thunder might spreading from it. The East Pavilion Master of the Wind Thunder Pavilion, Lei the Venerable. Why is he here? It must be a message from the North Pavilion Master, Fei Tian. Around the call, some of the experienced and knowledgeable experts recognized the silver-robed man at a glance and immediately cried out in surprise. Whoosh, whoosh. After Lei the Venerable, two more figures quickly appeared. They were the West Pavilion Master and South Pavilion Master of the Wind Thunder Pavilion. Fei Tian, what's so urgent that you insist on having me here? Lei the Venerable scanned the surroundings. When he saw the All-Heaven Tower, his expression changed. Finally, his gaze stopped on Fei Tian. His voice was like thunder, mixed with the thunder might. Some of the weaker experts around the call could not help but tremble. Old man Lei, your voice is still so powerful! Just as Lei the Venerable finished speaking, an ear-piercing sound of wind breaking rang out in the sky. In the next moment, under countless shocked gazes, a huge sword that was 10 feet long cut open the void. A figure walked out from the gap. Compared to the Thunder Reverend, this was an old man with a short stature and dressed in sackcloth. Although the difference in size was huge, the power this short old man exuded was not inferior to Lei the Venerable. Old man Sword, why are you here? Looking at the short old man who had appeared, Lei Zunja's eyes flashed with surprise. Not only him, I'm here too! Before Sword Venerable could speak, a strange laughter with a sinister tone rang out. Then, a pitch-black light suddenly appeared in the sky. It was an old man with a sinister look between his eyebrows. His eyes were different from ordinary people's. One was black and the other was white. Venerable Acheron, long time no see. Sword Venerable glanced at the black-robed old man and said indifferently. Venerable Acheron was about to reply to Sword Venerable when he suddenly felt something and looked towards the northwest with a sinister gaze. A sound like a dragon's roar suddenly rang out. Then, a huge green whirlwind tore through the void and appeared beside Sword Venerable. A figure walked out from the whirlwind. It was an old man wearing a green robe. His white hair draped over his shoulders, giving people a free and easy feeling. Perhaps it was because he cultivated wind-attributed battle energy, but his aura was somewhat ethereal and gave people a strange and unpredictable feeling. Lay the Venerable, Sword Venerable, Acheron, and Venerable Wind. They're all here. Ha! To be able to see these four, this trip was not in vain. 4 venerable ones are here. I wonder if that guy will still claim that the tower belongs to him. Around the call, countless gazes were focused on Lay the Venerable's group of 4. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement. For them, it was harder than ascending to heaven to see such people. But who would have thought that not only would they see one today, but they would also see 4 of them at the same time? After the arrival of the 4 venerable ones, Han Qi, Han Yu, and the rest of the Han family's experts became even more worried. Previously, Chu Bei had killed the 4 elders of Fonlei Beige. It could be said that he was standing on the opposite side of the Wind Thunder Pavilion. And just now, Iron Lump, who was next to him, had severely injured the vice pavilion master of the Wanjian Pavilion, Jianheng. In this way, Chu Bei had directly offended 2 of the Square Pavilion's pavilions. Jianheng, why did you call me here? Sword Venerable looked at Jianheng. But when he noticed that Jianheng was severely injured, his face suddenly darkened. Who injured you? Sword Venerable's gaze swept across Fei Tian, Sherbin, and Yu Hong as he shouted, filled with monstrous anger. Jianheng's figure flashed and flew to Sword Venerable's side. His lips moved slightly. Fei Tian, Sherbin, and Yu Hong also flew to Lay the Venerable, Venerable Wind, and Acheron's side. They recounted what had happened in detail. Hearing this, Sword Venerable was the first to look at Chu Bei. Following which, the other 3 venerable ones' gazes also landed on Chu Bei. Meeting the gazes of the 4 venerable ones, Chu Bei's emotions fluctuated for the first time. This was the first time he had faced Do Zun since he had transmigrated. If it weren't for the fact that he had the right to use a 9th-level product and Xiao Hei by his side, he wouldn't have been able to face the 4 venerable ones so calmly. Putting the pagoda aside, how do you plan to settle the matter of you killing the 4 elders of Fonlei Beige? Without waiting for Sword Venerable to speak, Lay the Venerable spoke first. His thunderous voice exploded in the sky. What do you think? Chu Bei's gaze met Lay the Venerable's. His voice was calm. Pay with your life. With a voice filled with killing intent, Lay the Venerable's body exploded with a terrifying energy wave. Accompanied by a cold shout, this energy wave surged toward Chu Bei like a torrential river. Chu Bei didn't bat an eyelid. Because he had the system, this so-called pressure was useless against the Do Zun. Even the pressure of a Do Emperor of this plane was useless against him. Chapter 116. Old Man Lay, I'll leave that guy to you. As for the puppet that severely injured Jianheng, leave it to me. After the Sword Venerable glanced at Lay the Venerable, his gaze locked onto Xiao Hei's doppelganger beside Chu Bei. Fine, I'll share one with you. As Lay the Venerable's loud voice fell, rolling thunder appeared around his body. In the next moment, Lay the Venerable and Sword Venerable's figures disappeared at the same time. When they reappeared, they were already in front of Chu Bei and Xiao Hei respectively. After reaching the Do Zun realm, one could cross the void and activate the power of space. Seeing Lay the Venerable in front of him, Chu Bei was about to retreat, but Xiao Hei had already appeared in front of him. Then, a strange mechanical sound came from within Xiao Hei's doppelganger. Immediately after, Xiao Hei's doppelganger shook violently as if it had a life of its own. A black fog appeared all over its body. When the black fog dissipated, Xiao Hei's doppelganger seemed to have evolved. Its body was covered with a layer of black fog armor. At the same time, 2 red lights shot out from its eyes. A violent and terrifying aura spread out. Roar! A loud roar that seemed to have come from ancient times resounded in this space. The terrifying sound wave reverberated around the entire Heaven Eye mountain range, shaking the surrounding trees and mountains to the point of shattering. At this moment, Xiao Hei's doppelganger was like a primordial beast that had just woken up from a deep sleep. The roar was filled with heart-palpitating cruelty and brutality. It seemed to be filled with endless destruction and slaughter. The source of the roar seemed to represent the world's most terrifying calamity. Feeling the terrifying and strange energy fluctuation released by Xiao Hei's doppelganger, Lei the Venerable and Sword Venerable's expressions changed drastically. However, before they could hide in the void, Xiao Hei's doppelganger had already raised his arms and slapped at the 2 of them. With no time to hesitate, Lei the Venerable and Sword Venerable hurriedly mobilized the energy in their bodies to form a defensive wall. Bang! Bang! Despite that, the defensive walls formed by the 2 venerable ones seemed to be nothing in the face of Xiao Hei's clone's fists. In an instant, it shattered into nothingness. Xiao Hei's fists landed on Lei the Venerable's and Sword Venerable's chests. With a low muffled sound, 2 figures were sent flying. They pierced through the void and crashed into the mountain wall. From the moment Xiao Hei stood in front of Chu Bei to the moment he sent the 2 venerable ones flying with a punch, the entire process was so fast that it took only a split second. After dealing with the 2 venerable ones, the black fog around Xiao Hei's body disappeared, and he returned to Chu Bei's side. Dealing with 2 venerable ones, he only used 1 punch. That iron lump's strength is so terrifying that even venerable ones can't be bothered with it. Is there still a Dozun puppet in this world? Looking at the 2 miserable figures in the mountain, the faces of the powerhouses around the call who witnessed the entire process instantly turned gray. Each of them felt as if they had been struck by a bolt from the blue, or as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them from head to toe. Their entire bodies went numb. How is this possible? Fei Tian, Jianhang, and the others murmured. Their faces were filled with bewilderment, as if they had been struck by lightning. They looked like clay statues. They could not believe that even venerable ones could not defeat the uniquely shaped iron lump. Venerable Wind and Acheron stared at Xiao Hei's doppelganger vigilantly. Their bodies were as tense as a rock, and their hearts were as heavy as lead. When the 2 of them glanced at Sword Venerable and Lei the Venerable, whose breathing was chaotic and extremely weak, there was a hint of relief in their eyes. Daddy, it seems like we really don't have to worry about Boss Chu. Han Yu's throat moved. Her brain seemed to have lost the ability to think. She stood there motionlessly like a piece of wood, staring blankly at Chu Bei and Xiao Hei's doppelganger in the air. At that moment, all of the people that witnessed this scene were stunned. This result was too sudden and unexpected. It was hard for them to react in time. The 2 venerable ones of the square pavilion were defeated by an iron lump that they had never heard of before. After a long time, the heavily injured Lei the Venerable and Sword Venerable finally flew out of the mountain. The 2 of them returned to their original positions. When they looked at Xiao Hei's doppelganger again, there was only fear in their eyes. The mysteries of the Heaven's Meat Pagoda has been prepared. Host, you can begin to sell it. The 7th level of the pagoda is limited to 100 people. Each person is limited to 2 hours. Cultivation requirement, fighting Emperor or below. The 8th level of the pagoda is limited to 50 people. Each person is limited to 4 hours. Cultivation requirement, fighting Emperor or above. As the system's voice rang out, Chu Bei realized that he had another connection with the mysteries of the Heaven's Meat Pagoda behind him. Do you still want this pagoda now? Chu Bei's gaze swept across Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the others. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the others' expressions were extremely ugly. However, no one dared to refute him. There was an ancient saying that a wise man submits to circumstances. They had already seen with their own eyes that even a venerable one was heavily injured by the iron lump. How could they still dare to covet the pagoda? This pagoda is called the Opportunity Pagoda. I spent many years to create it. I only let it appear in the world today. At this point, Chu Bei's gaze swept across the powerhouses around the colonel. There are opportunities in the pagoda, but I'm also a businessman. If you want to enter the pagoda, you naturally have to buy the right to enter the pagoda. Right now, I've opened 2 levels. For the 7th level, the entry fee is 5 million gold coins. For the 8th level, the entry fee is 10 million gold coins. Those who enter the 7th level can stay for a maximum of 2 hours. Those who enter the 8th level can stay for a maximum of 4 hours. Once the time is up, you'll be forcefully sent out of the pagoda. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Bei waved his sleeve. Immediately, a buzzing sound came from the huge pagoda in the kernel. The energy ripples on the 8th level surged and converged into a beam of light that connected to Chu Bei's body. At first glance, the current Chu Bei seemed to be connected to the huge pagoda. Chu Bei waved his hand again. With a boom, the tightly shut doors on the 7th and 8th levels opened at the same time. Although the doors were open, there was a layer of blurry ripples at the entrance. It was still impossible to see clearly what was inside the pagoda. Oh my God! This pagoda really belongs to him. Then, what he said just now was true too. As long as we have the money, we can enter? Looking at the energy ripples on Chu Bei's body that were connected to the Opportunity Pagoda, as well as the 18 doors on 2 levels that suddenly opened, the powerhouses around the call were first stunned. When they came back to their senses, they exclaimed in shock. Boss Chu really isn't that kind of person. We've misunderstood him. Han Qi and Han Yu looked at each other. Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the rest were shocked. At the same time, their eyes were filled with confusion. They were the ones who discovered this treasure land first. In the end, it was just as the other party had said. It had an owner. If that was the case, why did the pagoda have to appear in the vast mountain range? Those who want the opportunity, why aren't you paying to enter the pagoda? Chu Bei's gaze swept across the crowd. The corner of his lips curled up as he continued. However, I'll say this first. Although there are many opportunities in the pagoda, if you're unlucky, there's a high possibility that you'll end up empty-handed after 2 or 4 hours. Therefore, in the end, everything still depends on your own luck. With that, Chu Bei was ready to start collecting money. 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 50 seconds. Unfortunately, a full 3 minutes had passed since Chu Bei finished speaking, and there was still no one around the call who stepped forward. Although the powerhouses were eager to move, no one was the first to do so. Although 10 million or 5 million was not a small amount, most of them could afford it. They did not dare to try. Perhaps they were waiting for the first person, or perhaps they were afraid of Chu Bei and his clone, Xiao He. Or perhaps they were afraid that Chu Bei was deceiving them and that there was an unpredictable danger in the pagoda. They waited for another minute. Chu Bei coughed awkwardly. Then, he looked at Han Qi and Han Yu and his daughter and gave them a look. When they met Chu Bei's gaze, Han Qi and Han Yu was stunned. Then, they understood tacitly and soared into the sky. Look! Someone is going over! It's the head of the Han family! When they saw Han Qi and his daughter flying toward Chu Bei, the crowd of powerhouses was overjoyed. Boss Chu, are we flying directly into the pagoda? Han Qi asked tentatively. Regarding the unknown Opportunity Pagoda, even though he knew that it belonged to Chu Bei, he was still a little nervous. Those above Do Zone will enter the 8th floor. After Chu Bei glanced at Han Qi, he said to Han Yu. Those below Do Zone will enter the 7th floor. Hearing that, Han Qi and Han Yu nodded. After hesitating for a while, the two of them took out 10 million and 5 million respectively, and handed them to Chu Bei. Chu Bei glanced at the gold coins in front of him. With a wave of his sleeve, he sent them into the energy ripples on the 8th floor of the Opportunity Pagoda. The system has received 150,000 willpower. The host has received 75,000 willpower. Almost at the same time, the system's voice rang in Chubei's mind. Then, Han Qi and his daughter flew toward the 8th and 7th floors of the Opportunity Pagoda respectively. Just as the two of them passed through a large door, two images appeared out of thin air outside the Opportunity Pagoda. The main characters of the two images were Han Qi and his daughter. Is that the inside of the pagoda? How could it be such a scene? It's just like a whole new world. Universe in the sleeve, it's really unbelievable. The elites around the call stared blankly at the two images in front of the Opportunity Pagoda with their mouths wide open. Even the four martial highnesses were astonished. Obviously, they did not expect the inside of the pagoda to be an independent world. Seeing this, the four venerable ones looked at Chubei again. If this pagoda was really built by him, how terrifying was his strength. According to what they knew, even a Doxing would need tens or even hundreds of years to open up a complete space. Not to mention, hiding such a huge secret realm in a small pagoda was even more difficult. Could it be an illusion? Venerable Feng frowned and guessed. If it's really an illusion, how terrifying would the spiritual strength of the person who built it be? Venerable Akron took a deep breath and said, in short, whether it was a real world or an illusion, the cultivation of the person who built it was definitely not something they could imagine. Looking at the world in the two images, Chubei could not help but criticize in his heart. Although this was his pagoda, he could not enter it. Chapter 117. How could it be like this? Han Yu walked on the black soil and looked around, seriously sizing up this strange little world. Under her feet was a dark and wide road. The road didn't have an end and she didn't know where it led to. On her right was a winding stream and in the distance were towering mountains. She couldn't imagine that the 7th floor of the tower would be like this. She originally thought that the 7th floor would be smaller than the area of the valley. Who knew that after flying in, she would find that she had arrived in a brand new world. Shio! Just as Han Yu was seriously sizing up her surroundings, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Feeling the wind behind her, Han Yu felt a chill run down her spine. Then, she subconsciously exerted force with her right foot and dodged to the left. A cold light narrowly brushed past Han Yu's right hand. Han Yu steadied herself and looked forward. When she saw the creature that attacked her, a trace of surprise appeared on her face. It was a magic beast with a horn and the shape of a wild boar. Han Yu recognized it at a glance. It was a 3rd-level magic beast, armor-breaking beast. In terms of strength, it was about the level of a human Didosher. As for why she was surprised? She had seen many 3rd-level armor-breaking beasts, but this was the first time she saw one with a knife in its mouth. The armor-breaking beast moved again, charging toward Han Yu with the knife in its mouth. There are really all kinds of strange things. My horizons have been broadened. This time, Han Yu didn't dodge. Instead, she wrapped her right hand with Do Qi and clawed at the knife in the armor-breaking beast's mouth. Gotcha! Han Yu used a bit of force and with a crisp sound, the knife in the armor-breaking beast's mouth broke into two. With its weapon destroyed, the armor-breaking beast didn't run away. Instead, it became even more ferocious. After squeaking twice at Han Yu, it opened its mouth and pounced toward her neck. You don't know death! Han Yu snorted coldly and raised her hand to punch out. Bang! With a muffled sound, the armor-piercing beast was sent flying like a cannonball before exploding in the air. After killing the armor-piercing beast, Han Yu saw mounds of dirt appear around her. Then, a low roar came from the mounds of dirt. Han Yu looked around and frowned. Soon, the mounds began to loosen, and an armor-piercing beast emerged from each mound. These armor-piercing beasts were the same as the ones before. They all had a saber in their mouths that flickered with a cold light. Looking at the hundreds and thousands of armor-piercing beasts, Han Yu waved her right hand and a thin silver sword appeared in her palm. In the next moment, Han Yu's figure flashed. Every time her sword fell, the corpses of several armor-piercing beasts would appear on the ground. Buzz, just as Han Yu killed a slightly larger armor-piercing beast, a spirit pill filled with rich medicinal energy flew out. As soon as the spirit pill entered her hand, Han Yu felt an irresistible energy enveloping her body. Then, the scene in her vision changed. When the scene stabilized, Han Yu found that she was already outside the giant tower. She's out! She's out! What did she get just now? Could that be the so-called opportunity? Once she gets the opportunity, she will be immediately teleported out? What good things can there be in the body of a third-level armor-piercing beast? Around the call, the experts who had witnessed the entire process stared at Han Yu, especially her tightly clenched hands. Their faces were filled with curiosity and anticipation. Han Yu came back to her senses. Ignoring the gazes around her, she slowly opened her right hand. In her palm, there was a translucent spirit pill the size of a thumb. It emitted a rich medicinal fragrance. Smelling it, one would feel refreshed. Fight Huang Dan! Recognizing the spirit pill in her hand at a glance, Han Yu exclaimed. Her face was filled with astonishment. She couldn't be more familiar with Fight Huang Dan. Previously, it was all thanks to Fight Huang Dan that she was able to fight with Hong Qin. However, because Fight Huang Dan was a 7th level product, on average, she would have to spend close to 30 million to obtain one. She didn't expect that she would obtain a spirit pill from the body of a 3rd level armor-piercing beast after spending only 5 million. Are you satisfied with the opportunity in the tower? Chu Bei looked at Han Yu with a smile. Han Yu nodded heavily. Then, under countless gazes, she threw Huang Dan into her mouth. Immediately, Han Yu's body lit up with a gorgeous light. Her aura is becoming stronger. As far as I know, Han Yu is now a 7-star Do Huang. Is the spirit pill from the armor-piercing beast useful for such an expert? If that's the case, then this tower really lives up to its name. She broke through from 7 stars to 8 stars. When Han Yu's aura stabilized, Fei Tian, Jianheng, Yu Hong, and the others looked at each other. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. Even the 4 martial highnesses were slightly startled. Everyone, the spirit pill that Miss Han Yu obtained from killing the armor-piercing beast is called Huang Dan. As long as you are in the Do Huang realm, regardless of whether you are a 1-star Do Huang or an 8-star Do Huang, you will be able to raise your cultivation by 1 star without any side effects. After Chu Bei finished introducing the effects of the Battle Emperor pill, everyone present immediately became excited. Especially those Do Huang realm experts, their eyes were filled with passion. The effect of this Huang Dan is not any weaker than the priceless Huang Dan. After personally witnessing Han Yu's cultivation increase, the experts around the call became more and more restless. However, perhaps because they had only seen one example and were still worried, these experts suppressed their palpitations and cast their gazes towards the other image where Han Qi was. After passing through the door of the 8th floor of the tower, Han Qi was stunned by the scene in front of him. His thoughts were the same as Han Yu's, but in reality, this was a strange world. Light and fog were dense, hazy, mysterious, and deep. In the air, rich spirit qi of heaven and earth assaulted his face. The spirit qi here was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than the outside world. Is this the 8th floor? Han Qi muttered to himself. The surrounding fog was hazy, as if chaos was surging. Everything looked blurry. After walking for a while, the hazy white fog gradually dissipated and his vision gradually improved. Han Qi once again looked at the ruins in front of him. This was like an abandoned world. What entered his eyes was desolation, and it looked extremely bleak and distant. Looking ahead, he saw a large area of ruins. Perhaps it was once a magnificent hall, but now, only broken walls and ruins were left. The ruins were huge and empty, and there were rubble everywhere. Is this caused by the passage of time, or after a terrifying battle? Looking at the once magnificent palaces and halls that had turned into rubble, Han Qi could not help but frown. Crack! Coming to the ruins, there was a crisp sound under his feet. It was a piece of broken armor. He did not know what material it was made of, but there was a faint mist lingering on it. Driven by curiosity, Han Chi picked up the broken armor. However, the moment he picked up the broken armor, the armor released a dazzling light. Then, an irresistible force enveloped his body. Like Han Yu, when Han Chi came back to his senses, he was already outside the Opportunity Tower. Whoosh! Countless gazes gathered on Han Chi. To be more precise, they were focused on the broken armor in Han Chi's hands. Boss Chu, what's with me? Han Chi looked at the tattered armor in his hand and then looked at Chu Bei. He had a blank look on his face, as if he was a monk scratching his head in confusion. Don't worry. Not only did your 10 million not go to waste, but you also made a huge profit. The corner of Chu Bei's mouth lifted. He extended his finger and pointed at the broken armor in Han Chi's hand. This armor is called the Dragon Elephant Armor. It is nourished with blood and the wearer can defend against all attacks below a 9-star dose zone. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Han Chi's hands that were holding the broken armor trembled. His face was filled with excitement. He did not doubt the truth of Chu Bei's words at all. He believed him unconditionally. Immediately, he cut his fingertip and a few drops of blood entered the broken armor. With a buzzing sound, the broken armor that absorbed Han Chi's blood seemed to have been reborn. Not only did it repair the broken parts, but it also changed its size. Especially when it was worn on Han Chi's body, it was as if it was tailor-made for him. You just said that it can defend against attacks below 9 stars of dose zone? My cultivation is at 8 stars of dose zone. Can I give it a try? In the air, Xingyunji's deputy pavilion master, Sherbin, cupped his hands respectfully at Chu Bei. Then, he pointed at the armor on Han Chi's body. Unlike the Wind Thunder Pavilion and Wanjian Pavilion, they had no grudges with Chu Bei. After witnessing the iron lump's strength, they were more inclined to befriend him. You can give it a try. Chu Bei nodded at Sherbin. Then, he looked at Han Chi and gave him a reassuring look. Meeting Chu Bei's gaze, Han Chi nodded in response. Then, he turned around and faced Sherbin. Coincidentally, he also wanted to try if this armor could really defend against attacks below 9 stars of dose zone, as Chu Bei had said. Under countless expectant gazes, Sherbin clenched his right hand. The majestic energy in his body quickly gathered in his palm. The terrifying energy fluctuation caused the air to distort. With a soul-stirring sizzling sound, a long spear was formed. Xiao! Sherbin threw it. The long spear was so fast that it was in front of Han Chi in the blink of an eye. Han Chi's pupils shrank. Just as he instinctively circulated his do chi to dodge, the armor on his body suddenly released a dazzling light. Under this light, the long spear that had gathered Sherbin's 8-star dose zone strength stopped in its tracks. Finally, with a roar, it turned into a rain of light and dissipated. Oh my God! It actually blocked it. This is really a tower with opportunities. Let's not talk about the fact that killing a 3rd-grade armor-piercing beast can drop a pill that can raise a Do Huang's cultivation by 1 star. What's up with Han Chi? He didn't do anything. He just randomly picked up a broken armor from the ruins, and it actually blocked the attack of a 9 stars of dose zone. This 10 million is really a huge profit. Seeing Sherbin's attack being neutralized by the armor, the surrounding experts were stunned. Then they couldn't help but cry out in surprise. When they looked at Sherbin, they were even more shocked. Now, he truly believed that this tower contained a supreme opportunity. Boss Chu, I have 5 million here. At this time, one of the Han family elders didn't want to wait any longer. He took out 5 million gold coins and after obtaining Chu Bei's permission, he directly flew into the 7th floor of the tower. A new image appeared. In the image was a world filled with birds and fragrant flowers. The figure in the image was the Han family elder who had just entered. At this moment, the Han family elder's face was filled with excitement. In front of him, there were spirit plants emitting a rich fragrance. Just from the dense mist flowing on the branches and leaves, one could tell that these spirit plants were not ordinary. This Han family elder seemed to know the rules and didn't immediately pick them. Instead, he looked here and there, as if he was looking for the most valuable spirit plant. Could it be that everyone enters a different world after entering the tower? When they saw that the Han family elder's image was different from the image shown by Han Yu, the four venerable ones' faces changed once again. With this thought in mind, the wariness in the gazes of Thunder Zunja and Sword Zunja when they looked at Chu Bei again became even more intense. Boss Chu, I'll give you the 5 million. I'm going in too. After the second Han family elder made his decision, the third, fourth, fifth. In the end, all of the Han family elders took out 5 million gold coins and impatiently flew into the 7th floor of the tower. After all of the Han family elders had entered the tower, the Do Wangs and Do Huangs who were watching finally couldn't hold themselves back and began to scramble to pay the entrance fee. The images in front of the Tower of Opportunity also increased. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. The system has obtained 50,000 willpower. Supporting the host has obtained 25,000 willpower. As Chu Bei listened to the system's continuous beeps, as well as the ever-increasing willpower value, the smile on his face grew wider and wider. Boss Chu, I'll take a trip to the 8th floor. Hearing the way the Han family addressed Chu Bei, Xingyun Ji's vice pavilion master Bin also changed the way he addressed him. After paying the 10 million entry fee, he flew into the 8th floor. Bin had just passed through the door, and didn't even have time to observe his surroundings when he felt a black shadow pounce at him from the right. The black shadow's aura was roughly equivalent to a 3-star Do Huang. Bin didn't hesitate at all and waved his hand with all his strength. With a bang, the black shadow exploded and a pill fell into his palm. Then, Bin felt an irresistible force envelop him. In the next moment, Bin was transported out. Looking at the familiar surroundings, Bin carefully held the pill in his hand with a dazed expression. From the time he paid to entering the tower to killing the black shadow and obtaining the pill, it took less than a second. Boss Chu, is this the fastest opportunity for me? After a long while, Bin finally came back to his senses. Holding the pill in his hand, he looked at Chu Bei with a questioning gaze. Chu Bei also looked at Bin. He was also shocked. The other party's speed was so fast that it was unbelievable. The scene in front of the giant tower only flashed by for a moment. Chu Bei coughed softly. I see that your bones are amazing. You are indeed the chosen one. The pill you obtained is called the Battle Master Pill. As for its effect, it is similar to the Huang Dan, but the target is changed to a Battle Master. You mean, it can help me break through to 9 stars? Bin directly ignored the first half of Chu Bei's teasing and excitedly put the Battle Master Pill to the tip of his nose and sniffed it. Then, after a slight hesitation, he slowly put the pill into his mouth. At this moment, the 4 venerables, Fei Tian, Jianheng, Yu Hong, and the other strong people in the square pavilion all focused their gazes on Bin. After waiting for a moment, they felt Bin's aura begin to rise. He really broke through. When Bin's aura stabilized, Fei Tian, Jianheng, and the others looked at each other in disbelief. P.S. If any of you have the monthly votes, I hope you can support me and vote for me. Thank you very much. Chapter 118. The person who was the most excited was none other than Bin himself. He had been stuck at an 8-star Do zone for many years without any signs of breaking through. Who knew that he would successfully break through after spending only 10 million? Feeling the increase in strength in his body, Bin once again looked at Chu Bei with eyes full of gratitude. Boss Chu, I want 10 million too. Yu Hong's figure flashed and appeared in front of Chu Bei. He bowed, took out 10 million, and flew to the 8th floor. Seeing Yu Hong disappear through the door, Fei Tian and Jianheng looked at each other with envy. As a businessman, in front of money, past grudges can be put aside. At this moment, Chu Bei's voice sounded in Fei Tian and Jianheng's ears. Hearing this, Fei Tian and Jianheng looked at Chu Bei. After hesitating for a while, they took out 10 million and entered the 8th floor of the tower. 9 stars dozong. This was a huge temptation for them. Boss Chu, can we go in and take a look? Finally, Venerable Wind couldn't hold back his curiosity. He wanted to enter the tower and personally experience its mysteries. You can enter if you pay. Chu Bei was very easygoing. Venerable Wind didn't say much. After handing over 10 million, he instantly appeared in front of a door on the 8th floor of the Opportunity Tower and walked in. After Venerable Wind, the Venerable Acheron, Lei the Venerable, and Sword Venerable all entered the tower. As more and more powerful people entered the 8th floor of the square pavilion, the other dozongs who were originally hesitating also made their decision. One figure after another flew into the 8th floor. The number of people on the 7th floor has reached 100. Entry stopped. When the system's voice sounded, the 8 doors on the 7th floor of the Opportunity Tower closed at the same time. Boss Chu, this is? The remaining powerhouses who had yet to enter the tower pointed at the tightly shut door as a bad premonition arose in their hearts. Everyone, the number of people who have entered the 7th floor has reached my target. I'll close it now. Chu Bei glanced at the people who had yet to enter the tower and responded indifferently. After confirming their guesses, regret appeared on everyone's faces. Seeing that the 7th level had already closed, the experts above the dozong class began to scramble with one another, afraid that they would miss this opportunity. The number of people on the 8th floor has reached 50. Entry stopped. After a while, the system's voice sounded again. Those elite dozongs who had yet to enter the 7th level were just like those who had yet to enter. Their faces were filled with regret. As time passed, those people who entered the tower were sent out one after another. Their faces were all filled with excitement. Of course, there were also a few people whose expressions were extremely ugly. As soon as they entered the pagoda, they entered a barren land or a boundless desert. Before they even flew to the place with the treasures, the time was up. Rumble! When everyone was teleported out of the pagoda of fortuitous encounters disappeared with a rumble. Xiaohei, who was beside Chu Bei, also disappeared. Boss Chu, when do you plan to open the pagoda of fortuitous encounters again? At this moment, a dozong who had yet to enter the pagoda could not help but ask. For now, Chu Bei replied indifferently. Although the opportunity that the 4 great dozuns had obtained was not of much use to them, they had personally experienced the mysteries of the world within the pagoda. It was not an illusion but a real world. Because of this, when they flew out of the pagoda and looked at Chu Bei, the strange look in their eyes was indescribable. Everyone will meet again if fate allows. After saying this with a smile, Chu Bei landed beside the little doctor and Qing Lin and left with the 2 girls. After sending the 2 girls back to the Han house, Chu Bei went to a secluded area outside the city and impatiently opened the system interface. Through this pagoda of fortuitous encounters, the 100 people on the 7th floor received 5 million willpower. The 50 people on the 8th floor also received 5 million willpower. A total of 5 million willpower. Including the remaining amount from before, Chu Bei currently had a total of 3 million willpower. In the dozong realm, one needed 1 million willpower to exchange for 1 star of cultivation. Currently, Chu Bei's cultivation was at 7 stars of dozong. In the dozun realm, one needed 2 million willpower to break through 1 star. Host successfully exchanged cultivation. Without hesitation, Chu Bei used 4 million willpower to exchange for cultivation. The first 2 million willpower was used to break through to 9 stars of dozong, while the last 2 million willpower was used to break through to the dozun realm. The system's voice sounded and that familiar warm current arrived on time. It began to rush through his limbs and bones and every cell in his body. Outside the Heaven Eye Mountain, the mysteries of the Heavens Meet Pagoda disappeared and several figures flashed out. However, just as these people were about to turn back, each of them looked toward the southeast with uncertainty. Faintly, they seemed to sense a dangerous and terrifying aura. This aura was like a sleeping dragon that was slowly awakening. What's going on? Was it an illusion? The group of powerhouses stopped in their tracks and looked toward the southeast. They looked at each other. Boom! Just as the group of powerhouses was guessing, a vast and majestic energy fluctuation suddenly spread out from the southeast like a surging tide. Ripples appeared in the void. Immediately after, in their line of sight, 3 huge fire dragons intertwined in the air and turned into a 3-colored flame that covered half the sky. Even though they were far away, the moment the 3-colored flame appeared, the temperature of the air around the group of powerhouses rose abruptly. What a terrifying flame! What's going on over there? Let's go and take a look. However, just as the group of powerhouses was about to go and investigate, an even more terrifying energy swept over. This energy directly tore the void apart and made a sizzling sound. The group of powerhouses looked at each other and gave up on the idea of going to investigate without hesitation. This aura, someone is advancing to a dozune! Lay the Venerable narrowed his eyes when he felt the increasingly powerful energy fluctuation from the southeast. When you advanced to a dozune, did you have this kind of power? Venerable Wind glanced at Lay the Venerable indifferently. Lay the Venerable frowned. But based on the Do-Chi fluctuation alone, it's indeed the peak of a Do-zone advancing to a Do-zune. There's no need to be suspicious. We'll know once we go and take a look, Acheron said indifferently. However, the moment the 4 Venerable Lords disappeared, the terrifying energy fluctuation from the southeast also disappeared. Outside the city, in the southeast corner, the 4 Venerable Lords appeared and looked at the empty mountain forest with their brows tightly knitted together. We're a step too late. Venerable Wind sighed. At the same time, Chu Bei, who had already appeared in the sky above the Han house, had a smile on his face. Is this the Do-zune realm? It's really comfortable. Feeling the vast ocean-like Do-Chi in his body, Chu Bei couldn't help but feel a little fascinated. Do-zune and Do-zone, although there was only a difference of 1 level, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. This step was perhaps the punishment of the heavens that countless Do-zones couldn't cross in their entire lives. Chu Bei looked in front of him. He stretched out his palm and suddenly clenched it. Immediately, the space in front of him distorted into a strange sunken space. Spatial gullies were formed in the surroundings. If this clench was used against a magical beast, even a grade 7 magical beast with strong defense would be crushed into a pile of flesh and blood. Feeling the vast energy that could distort space with just a raise of his hand, Chu Bei's smile became even wider. Whether one could control space was the most obvious difference between a Do-zune and a Do-zone. System with a conscience. Chu Bei returned to the Han house and once again evaluated the system. Although he wasn't able to become a Do-di in 7 days due to various restrictions, since the system was activated, he had stepped into the Do-zune realm in a month. Reaching this realm, even in the entire Do-Chi continent, he could be considered a strong person. After all, even the pavilion master of the square pavilion was only at this realm. After becoming a Do-zune, Chu Bei found that he was more adept at using the 3 heavenly flames. His control of the fusion between them had also become more perfect. 15 minutes later, Chu Bei brought Qing Lin and Little Doctor to the main hall of the Han house to bid farewell to Han Qi and the others. Boss Chu, are you leaving so soon? Han Yu's face was filled with reluctance. All good things must come to an end. Moreover, we are just passing by. If fate wills it, we will meet again. Chu Bei's words carried a smile. In reality, the other reason he was leaving was that the Han family had already used up 90% of their wealth. There was no point in staying any longer. Boss Chu, take care. If you have time, you are welcome to visit the Han family at any time. Looking at the spaceship that suddenly descended outside the main hall, the Han family members' eyes flashed with astonishment. Before this, they had already heard about it from Han Shui. However, seeing it with their own eyes still caused a huge wave in their hearts. Looking at the disappearing spaceship, Han Qi's expression was somewhat absent-minded. Although the other party had only stayed in the Han house for a few short days, in these few days, the overall strength of the Han house had increased by several levels because of the other party. Now they no longer put their former opponent, the Hong family, in their eyes. As for Feng Beige, even if the other party did not care about their reputation and attacked a faction in the city, they still had to be wary of the boss Chu behind them. Moreover, he himself had obtained a dragon elephant armor that could defend against the 9 stars Do Zone attack. Boss Chu, can you hear me? I am Xiao Yan. Can you hear me? On the spaceship, Chu Bei was enjoying Qing Lin's massage when Xiao Yan's anxious voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ever since Xiao Yan became the proxy, he could communicate with the other party through the proxy ring. The other party could also contact him through the proxy ring. However, in these few days, the other party had not used the proxy ring to contact him. This was the first time. Chu Bei looked at the proxy page on the system interface. Then, with a thought, he clicked on the teleport button behind the proxy named Xiao Yan. The moment he pressed the teleport button, a ripple appeared in the spaceship, followed by a buzzing sound. A figure appeared out of thin air. Looking at the huge change in his surroundings, Xiao Yan had a dumbfounded expression. Only when he saw the familiar faces of Chu Bei, Qing Lin, and Little Doctor did he react and exclaim, "Boss Chu! In just a few days, I didn't expect you to break through to the Do Huang realm." Chu Bei looked at Xiao Yan with a smile. "Boss Chu, where am I?" Xiao Yan looked around and could not help but ask. "Above the central region." Chu Bei calmly replied. "What? This is the central region." Hearing Chu Bei's words, Xiao Yan's mouth opened wide, his face full of shock. Chapter 119. Xiao Yan's face was filled with disbelief. Although he had never been to the central region, he knew the distance between the central region and Canaan College. Even if a Do Zone flew at full speed, it would still take a few days. And he was still in the inner court of Canaan a second ago, and in the next second, he was in the sky above the central region. "As expected of Boss Chu, you're really resourceful." Xiao Yan calmed his mind and couldn't help but sigh. "Speak, why did you call me?" Chu Bei went straight to the point. Xiao Yan was stunned at first, but quickly thought of something. His face was filled with anxiety as he hurriedly said, "Yao Lao was captured by the Soul Hall." Chu Bei frowned. "Then why are you looking for me? I'm just a merchant." Xiao Yan seemed to understand Chu Bei's meaning. He took out a transparent jade box about 1 meter long and 1 meter tall from his storage ring. Inside the box, there was a ball of white flame dancing. When this ball of flame was taken out by Xiao Yan, even though it was wrapped in a jade box, the temperature in the flying ship still dropped a lot. "Bone-chilling flame?" Chu Bei looked at Xiao Yan with some surprise. "Bone-chilling flame, ranked 11th on the Heavenly Flame ranking. It is a unique flame that combines extreme cold and extreme heat. It can only be found in places of extreme cold and extreme heat every 100 years when the sun and moon alternate. This was originally Yao Lao's heavenly flame, but when he was captured by the Soul Hall, he gave it to me." At this point, Xiao Yan's expression became extremely serious. "Boss Chu, you're a merchant. I'm now using it to make a deal with you on behalf of Yao Lao. I want you to save Yao Lao and reconstruct his physical body. Host, please complete the bone-chilling flame trade as soon as possible. After the trade is completed, level 9 commodity rights will be granted to the host, and the host will be rewarded with 1 million willpower." Just as Chu Bei was hesitating whether to be a good person for free, the system's voice sounded. "All right, I'll accept this trade." Chu Bei really couldn't refuse the reward after completing the mission, especially the level 9 commodity authority. Therefore, Chu Bei could only suppress his kindness for the time being. Once the level 9 merchandise authority was unlocked, he would have the confidence to roam the Do Chi continent. In the short conversation that followed, Chu Bei also found out the reason why Yao Lao was captured. Speaking of which, this had something to do with him. When Han Feng brought people into the inner court of Canaan, Chu Bei killed a 9-stars Dozong from Soul Palace. Before this Dozong died, he had used the Soul Tablet to inform the branch hall leader that he belonged to. After this branch hall chief had determined the general location of the 9-stars Dozong's death, he had sent people to patrol and monitor in an attempt to find the entrance to the inner academy. However, it was to no avail. Until today, when Vice Dean Hugon was leading a group of new students to train in the back mountain, they were discovered by the people of Soul Palace. The branch hall leader had also rushed over immediately. Although his interrogation was to no avail, he had discovered Yao Lao's existence. The branch hall leader was so strong that Hugon and Su Qian, who had arrived later, were heavily injured. As for Yao Lao, he was taken away by the branch hall leader. "Boss Chu, do you have any plans?" Xiaoyan probed. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. After glancing at Xiaoyan, he moved his mind and pressed the transfer button on the agent interface. In an instant, the entire meteor metal ship turned into a ray of light and disappeared. "I'm back!" Looking at the familiar forest around him, Xiaoyan was shocked. "Boss Chu!" At this moment, Su Qian, Hugon, and the others saw Chu Bei and immediately flew over. Their voices were filled with shock. They didn't expect that Xiaoyan would bring Boss Chu back after disappearing for a few minutes. "Let's go and save Yao Chen." Chu Bei nodded at Su Qian and the others and said, "Boss Chu, do you know the location of the Soul Palace branch hall that captured Elder Yao?" Su Qian was confused and asked. The Soul Palace had many branch halls. Any one of them was extremely hidden and hard to find. Chu Bei smiled. When the system accepted the bone-chilling fire, a small map appeared in his sea of consciousness. There was a red dot on the map that represented Yao Lao's location. The bone-burying mountain range was located in the northwest of the Black Corner region. Due to the terrain, the Yin aura here was extremely heavy. Moreover, the Yin aura was mixed with a thick corpse aura. As this mountain range was close to the chaotic Black Corner region, it had the name Bone-Burying Mountain Range. The corpses of those who were killed in the Black Corner region would mostly be transported here and then casually discarded. Regardless of day or night, it was almost impossible to find a shadow in this mountain range. A cool breeze filled with chilliness brushed past the piles of bones. A ripple appeared in the air above a pile of bones. Several figures walked out from the ripple. "I didn't expect the branch hall to be hidden in such a gloomy place." Xiaoyan glanced at the hundreds and thousands of corpses below, and couldn't help but crease his brows. "Isn't this the most suitable place for them?" The corners of Chu Bei's mouth held a smile. His gaze was fixed in between the two tall gray trees in front of him. Upon closer inspection, one could discover that there was a spatial barrier between the two tall trees. Arriving in front of the spatial barrier, Chu Bei casually waved his sleeve. The spatial barrier instantly shattered and waves of suction came from within. Then, he waved his right hand and a huge net made of purple flames appeared in the air above the bone-burying mountain range. "There's actually such a barrier. What a big deal!" Su Qian was speechless. The barrier of this Soul Palace branch hall was even better than the one in their inner courtyard. Entering the spatial barrier, Xiaoyan, Hugon and the others' expressions changed. In their line of sight, there was an extremely high and steep slope. At the end of the slope was a huge valley surrounded by mountains. Inside the valley was a huge black hall that was at least 100 zhang tall. The huge hall was like a creeping wild beast that was hiding in the darkness. It was filled with a terrifying aura that chilled one's heart. "Yao Chen is in that direction." After entering this space, Chu Bei quickly determined Yao Chen's location according to the map given by the system. Deep in the direction that Chu Bei pointed at, there was a huge plaza. On the plaza, there were black stone pillars that were 100 zhang tall. Each of the stone pillars was covered with countless strange runes. Numerous pitch-black chains extended from the stone pillars, intersecting and outlining the air of the square. At the end of these chains, there were balls of faint light floating. Inside these balls of light were illusory souls with painful expressions. In the center of the plaza, there was a platform that was about 100 zhang tall. There was a huge stone pillar on each side of the platform. 1-meter-long black chains snaked downwards like pythons. At the end of the chains, there was a ball of light with the most intense glow. Within the ball of light, an elderly soul was seated with his eyes closed. It was Yao Chen, who had been captured. At this moment, the 4 strange black chains were entwined around his limbs like vines, causing him to be unable to move. Suddenly, Yao Chen's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened in the deathly still atmosphere. This was because he had sensed a few familiar auras. How did they find this place? Yao Chen determined the owners of these few auras. His puzzled old face became grave as he muttered to himself. You should not have come. This branch hall chief was a 4-star Dozun. Su Qian, Hu Gan, Xiao Yan and the others had taken the risk to come here. This was no different from sending themselves to their deaths. Yao Qing tried to use his spiritual sense to transmit a message and ask Xiao Yan and the others to quickly leave. However, the chains on his body not only bound his soul but also suppressed his spiritual sense. Not good! The boundary wall has been broken. Quickly inform the hall chief. The remaining people will follow me to guard these spiritual bodies. A moment later, a black figure above the square sensed an abnormality and let out a sharp cry in a panic. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The cry had just been emitted from his mouth when black figures rushed toward the square in 2s and 3s from every corner of this space. Yao Lao, we have come to save you! A familiar voice sounded beside his ear. Yao Chen shook his head. Xiao Yan, Elder Su, with your strength, you really should not. Yao Chen sighed. However, he swallowed the remaining words in his mouth when he saw the few figures that had appeared in his sight. This was especially the case when he saw the person in the middle. Boss Chu! Why have you also come? Yao Chen exclaimed. The worry on his face instantly disappeared. Replacing it was a face that was filled with joy. His originally translucent body even vaguely showed signs of disappearing due to his excitement. Xiao Yan, you use your bone-chilling flame to make a deal with me on your behalf. I have accepted this deal. Therefore I have come, Chu Bei said indifferently. Hearing this, Yao Chun looked at Xiao Yan. He wanted to say something but hesitated. The invaders are here. Let's take them down together. On the square, following a shout, several figures surrounded Chu Bei and his group in an instant. Then, each of them held a weapon and charged toward Chu Bei and his group at the same time. Looking at the attacking figures, Chu Bei smiled indifferently. As he raised his hand, a 3-colored flame spread across the sky. Amidst the terrifyingly high temperature, these black figures did not even get within 10 meters of Chu Bei and his group before they were all burned by the flame. Not even their bones were left. After casually dealing with a group of ants, Chu Bei extended his hand and pointed at the pitch-black chain that bound Yao Qin. With a sizzling sound, the pitch-black chain was burned into nothingness under the 3-colored flame. Thank you, Boss Chu, for saving me. Although he knew that the other party had saved him as a deal, Yao Qin, who had regained his freedom, still cupped his hands toward Chu Bei with a face full of gratitude. Who are you? How dare you come here without permission? How did you find out about the entrance of this hall? At this moment, an icy cold voice was emitted from deep within the hall. Immediately, a dense black fog surged out from within. Within the black fog, an old figure that was as thin as a skeleton slowly hovered above the square while emitting a sinister aura. Within the black fog, one could vaguely see that old face appeared extremely shriveled. Both of his eyes were sunken and 2 clusters of ghost flames danced in his eye sockets, emitting traces of strangeness. Boss Chu. He is the one who captured Yao Lao, the hall chief of this branch hall. Xiao Yan pointed at the skinny old man and said, He is also a 4-star Dozun. Yao Qin added. At the same time, he paid attention to Chu Bei's expression. It was as though he was testing the other party's expression when he heard that he was a 4-star Dozun. However, to Yao Chen's disappointment, the other party's face did not reveal any joy or worry from the beginning until the end. Yao Qin, don't tell me that this person has received a favor from you? The skinny old man coldly stared at Chu Bei. His hoarse voice caused one's hair to stand. Earlier, he had personally witnessed the scene of the person in front of him killing all his subordinates. He had sensed the extraordinariness of the three-colored flame that was intertwined with each other. Chapter 120. You don't need to know my background. You only need to know that I am the one who killed Protector Yu of your branch hall. Other than that, there is also the sect leader of the Soul Sect and Wu Qian. That's right, there is also that Protector Wu who colluded with the Yunlan sect. Chu Bei placed his hands behind his back and calmly looked at the skinny old man. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a smile. So it is you! Hearing Chu Bei's words, the skinny old man's face immediately became gloomy. A dense cold voice that was filled with killing intent sounded. A monstrous black aura surged out from his body. At the same time, the many dark black chains around the square also began to tremble intensely at this moment. Finally, they all merged into the skinny old man's body. Those who oppose my Hall of Souls, regardless of what faction is behind you, must die. After killing you and extracting your soul, it will definitely be an outstanding spiritual body. A frightening laughter was emitted from the skinny old man's mouth. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes and the black fog behind him became increasingly pervasive. Feeling the increasingly frightening pressure being emitted from the skinny old man's body, Su Qian, Hu Gan and the others became incomparably solemn. An elite Dozun was something that they were far from being able to compare with. However, seeing Chu Bei's calm manner, the solemn expression on their faces became a little warmer. 7-chain demon ceiling! When the skinny old man's aura rose to its limit, his mouth once again emitted a stern cry. As the cry sounded, the black aura behind him surged. It was as though a demon god had descended to the world and roared at the sky. One could hear a dang-dang sound. 7 dark black chains within the black fog were accompanied by sharp screeching sounds as they rushed toward Chu Bei from different directions. That momentum was unusually frightening. Wherever the dark black chains passed, the empty space would shatter inch by inch. Spatial strength would spread. Su Qian, Hu Gan, Xiao Yan and the others immediately retreated and distanced themselves from the battlefield. As for Chu Bei, he did not dodge. With a faint smile, he flipped his palm and an axe with a flickering silver glow appeared. The axe appeared ordinary. However, if one were to look carefully, regardless of whether it was the handle or the blade, there was a layer of hazy fog that lingered for a long time. Rumble! Just as Chu Bei's right hand gripped the handle of the axe, the space around him trembled and distorted violently. Then, the barrier around this side hall began to shake violently. The boundless energy between heaven and earth surged like a raging river, crazily pouring into the axe blade. Kacha! Kacha! The 7 chains wielded by the skinny old man, which carried a terrifying aura, were shattered by the violent energy around the axe blade before they could reach within 1 meter of Chu Bei. Finally, they turned into a rain of light and disappeared in the distorted void. How is this possible? The skinny old man's pupils suddenly shrank, and a trace of astonishment flashed through his eyes. Without waiting for the skinny old man to launch another attack, Chu Bei held the axe with both hands and chopped down fiercely. Immediately, the energy in the surroundings formed a blade light at the tip of the axe under the guidance of the axe blade. It extended far away, 300 meters, 3,000 meters, until it pierced through the Soul Palace's barrier. Looking at the huge blade light above his head, fear appeared on the skinny old man's face. This destructive power was far above his. Without any hesitation, a ripple appeared under the skinny old man's feet. However, just as he was about to break through the void and escape, the huge blade light above his head chopped down. Under this power, the skinny old man suddenly realized that the void was imprisoned, and he had nowhere to run. 100-chain shield! Feeling the blade light getting closer and closer, the skinny old man did not dare to hesitate. He immediately switched from offense to defense, and adopted his strongest defense. As his voice trailed off, hundreds of pitch-black chains appeared from the black gas behind the skinny old man. Every chain was engraved with strange runes. Nearly 100 pitch-black chains intertwined, instantly forming a huge shield tablet. However, the skinny old man's strongest defense was no different from a decoration in front of the blade light. Kacha! The blade light was like lightning, easily splitting the shield tablet. Then, under the skinny old man's fearful gaze, it first landed between his eyebrows. In front of Su Qian, Xiaoyan, and Yao Chen's shocked gazes, the blade light instantly split the skinny old man into two. During the process, the skinny old man's soul tried to escape. However, before it could leave his body, the destructive energy on the blade light annihilated it into nothingness. Bang! After killing the skinny old man, the blade light continued to fall, landing on the square and the huge hall in the distance. Amidst the loud sound, the square and the huge hall were split into two, leaving behind a 10,000 feet wide and bottomless gully. Next, the boundaries shattered, revealing the burying bone mountain range. Gulp! Su Qian, Yao Chen, Xiao Yan, Hu Gan, and the others who had witnessed this scene finally recovered. They were startled as they looked at Chu Bei's back. Their expressions solidified, and they subconsciously inhaled a deep breath of cool air. With the might of the axe, they had completely witnessed the terrifying strength of this mysterious boss Chu. This branch hall chief, a 4-star Dozun, could not even receive a casual swing of the other party's axe and directly died. It is indeed worthy of being the sky-splitting axe. Chu Bei involuntarily let out an emotional sigh as he watched the ordinary-looking axe in his hand begin to dissipate. This was a one-time use killing-type consumable that he had chosen by using the level 9 commodity rights. The weakened sky-splitting axe was one of the 10 great ancient divine weapons, the sky-splitting axe. After the sky-splitting axe disappeared, Chu Bei's figure flashed and arrived beside Yao Chen. "Thank you, Boss Chu!" Yao Chen once again cupped his hands towards Chu Bei. After witnessing the might of Chu Bei's axe, there was an additional respect in his eyes. "Rescuing you is only half of the deal." At this point, Chu Bei waved his embroidered robe. Following the ripples, a golden disc with a diameter of 1 meter appeared, emitting a glaring light. At the top of the disc, the words Mission Roulette were engraved. Compared to the roulette of a normal transaction, the mission roulette did not have a limit on the number of times it could be rotated. The transaction would only end when the system determined that the transaction target was 100% satisfied. However, from the previous few times, the mission roulette's hit rate was terrifyingly high. Looking at the roulette that appeared in front of Chu Bei, Su Qian and Hu Gan glanced at each other. Back then, when they had used the Fallen Heart Flame as their transaction target, they had turned this roulette and gained a lot. "It will give you a physical body that you are satisfied with." Chu Bei pointed at the mission roulette and explained the rules to Yao Chen at the same time. After a long while, Yao Chen placed his right palm on the roulette in his soul form. The needle turned. Ding! Accompanied by a crisp sound, the pointer landed on a square box. The square box exploded. It was a human-shaped body made of latex material. When the information flow of this human-shaped body appeared in Chu Bei's mind, Chu Bei looked at Yao Chen in surprise. There was a trace of envy in his eyes. "This is?" Meeting Chu Bei's gaze and noticing the other party's expression, Yao Chen was confused and curious at the same time. "You will know once you enter." The corner of Chu Bei's mouth carried a smile as he pointed at the human-shaped body and said. Hearing this, Yao Chen directly entered the human-shaped body. In the next moment, the human-shaped body began to change in front of the eyes of Xiao Yan, Hu Gan and the others. It was no longer made of silicone material. Instead, it turned into a human body with flesh and blood. The appearance of this human body was exactly the same as Yao Chen's. "How is this physical body? Do you like it?" Chu Bei's words carried a smile. "Thank you very much." Sensing the extraordinariness of this body, Yao Chen's expression was excited. He bowed to Chu Bei. His weak spirit had just entered this physical body when it was affected by the majestic blood chi. Within a short moment, his spiritual strength had a shocking increase. As for his cultivation, it had also recovered to the level of a 7-star dozone. He was confident that once he completely familiarized himself with this physical body, he would be able to recover his peak strength in less than half a year. He might even be able to advance to the next level. This physical body is called the King of God's body. It is the physique of a god. It can be considered a great opportunity for you. Chu Bei patted Yao Qin gently and said earnestly, "As for how far you can go, it will depend on you." After saying this, Chu Bei transmitted the information about the King of God's body to Yao Qin. This so-called King of God's body came from the shrouding sky dimension. The more he understood about this body, the more excited Yao Qin became. The host's bone-chilling fire transaction is complete. Level 9 Commodity Authority unlocked. Reward, 1 million willpower. The moment the system's voice sounded, Chu Bei suddenly realized that the bone-chilling fire could also be used by him. At the same time, on the commodity exchange page in the system interface, the level 9 commodities that were originally gray all became multicolored and could be exchanged. Not long after Chu Bei and the others left, a large number of experts in the Black Corner region who heard the commotion rushed over. When they saw the almost ruined Soul Hall branch in the mountain range, they were all shocked and looked at each other. Inner Court of Canaan. "Boss Chu, are you going to Zhongzhou again?" Su Qian looked at Chu Bei. Little Ziyan was standing beside him. "You want me to bring her along?" Chu Bei saw through Su Qian's thoughts at a glance. Su Qian nodded. "Maybe we can find her clansmen in Zhongzhou." Chu Bei looked at Ziyan. "What do you think?" "I want to follow you." Little Ziyan stuck out her tongue. "I don't accept credit here, so there's no point in following me if you don't have money." Chu Bei patted little Ziyan's head. "I will think of a way to earn money." Little Ziyan immediately responded. Her talent was the power of space. "Since that's the case, let's go." Chu Bei took the lead and stepped onto the meteorite iron ship. Little Doctor and Qing Lin followed closely behind. After little Ziyan waved goodbye to Su Qian, Hu Gan, and the others, she also jumped onto the ship. She looked around excitedly like Granny Lu who had entered a big manor. The host has reached the requirement to obtain willpower. Upgrading the All Heavens shop. Choosing a new location for the All Heavens shop. Choosing a new location for the All Heavens shop has been successful. The host will go and check it out immediately. During the flight of the ship, Chu Bei was enjoying the delicious food cooked by Little Doctor when the system sounded. Hearing the sound, Chu Bei was stunned at first. After sorting out the information flow, he immediately put down the chopsticks in his hand. "Boss, what's wrong?" Little Doctor asked curiously. "We have a place to stay on this trip to Zhongzhou," Chu Bei said with a smile. Little Doctor and Qing Lin looked at each other, still confused. As for little Ziyan, she did not ask and just ate the delicious food on the table silently. "You'll know when we get there." Chu Bei did not go overboard, deliberately leaving the two girls in suspense. Zhongzhou was generally divided into 4 regions: East, West, South, and North. However, the place where the 4 regions intersected was also called the Central Region, which was also the central region of Zhongzhou. Even if the top forces of Zhongzhou were not headquartered in the Central Region, they would still set up branches in the Central Region. According to the system map, the upgraded All Heavens shop was located in the southwest of the Central Region. In the southwest region, the most famous forces were Sound Valley and Burning Flame Valley. These 2 forces were considered the dominators of the southwest region. Of course, other than these 2 forces, there were also countless other forces of various sizes. However, compared to Sound Valley and Burning Flame Valley, these forces were far too weak. To be more specific, the All Heavens shop was located in a city called Tianhuang City in the southwest region. This city was within the sphere of influence under the jurisdiction of Burning Flame Valley. As for the 2 largest families in the city, they were the Cheng family and the Lu family. In the void, the meteoric iron ship flew quickly. 15 minutes later, the meteoric iron ship arrived in the sky above Tianhuang City. Looking from the sky, compared to Tianbei City, Tianhuang City was larger and more popular. There were more experts above the king of fighting in the city. At the request of the three girls, Chu Bei put away the meteoric iron ship and landed on the main street at the entrance of the city with the three girls. On the street, there was an endless stream of people coming and going. It was full of noise and excitement. Chu Bei shook his head helplessly as he looked over at the three girls who were gathering together. Shopping was a woman's nature. It had nothing to do with age or plane. In the hustle and bustle, Chu Bei and the others walked along the main street. Sister Xian'er, Tianhuang City is so much more popular than Wutan City. Even Tianbei City can't compare. Qing Lin held Little Doctor's arm with excitement. Of course. This is the central region of Zhongzhou, the center of the entire continent. How can Wutan City compare to it? The little fairy doctor's eyes stared at the clothing stores on the street. She spoke as if she had been to the central region before. Just as the three girls were enjoying their stroll, the pedestrians on the street suddenly surged and rushed in one direction. Where are you going in such a hurry? Don't ask. Let's follow them first. If we're late, there won't be any good seats. What happened? Hurry up and tell us. I heard that a divine object suddenly appeared in the city square. I think it's a small mansion. What? There's such a thing? In the hustle and bustle, more and more people on the street ran in the direction of the central square. A mansion that descended from the sky? Hearing the conversation of the people on the street, Little Doctor's face flashed with surprise. She then looked at Chu Bei and said, Boss, let's go and join in the fun. We have to go. Chu Bei shook his head and sighed. He seemed to have guessed what was going on with the mansion that descended from the sky. In the center of Tianhuang City, there was an extremely spacious bluestone square. At this moment, the square was occupied by a sea of people. The noise was like a demon's voice, causing eardrums to buzz. Countless curious eyes were looking at the center of the square. There was a stone platform in the center of the square. On the stone platform, a huge black wormhole was slowly rotating. Shocking spatial fluctuations spread out from it. However, the focus of the crowd was not the wormhole that had existed for a long time. It was a small mansion about 100 meters away from the wormhole. Chapter 121. Looking over, there was something strange about this mansion. There was actually a circular membrane of light that completely enveloped it. In front of the entrance of the mansion, there were two groups of people facing each other. Isn't your Qing clan's reach a little too far? This central square is under the jurisdiction of our Lu clan. The leader of the group on the left was a well-built man. His face was firm and there was a faint feeling of prestige without being angry. I'm afraid that your Lu clan is too overbearing. The first to discover this mansion that fell from the sky is our Qing clan. The leader of the group on the right was also a middle-aged man. Although his body was skinny, the aura that he emitted was not weaker than the leader of the Lu clan. If this mansion was originally on this square, our Lu clan would naturally not care. However, it is an external object. Moreover, our Qing clan was the first to discover it. Naturally, it belongs to our Qing clan. The leader of the Qing clan spoke once again. His tone was forceful. If you don't leave, don't blame us for attacking. The leader of the Lu clan completely ignored the words of the leader of the Qing clan. After his cold snort sounded, the aura of an 8-star Do Wang erupted. Do you think that we are afraid of you? The leader of the Qing clan coldly stared at the leader of the Lu clan. His face did not have the slightest fear. In an instant, the atmosphere between the two groups became tense. The people around the square who were watching the show also took a couple of steps back. It was as though they were afraid of being implicated. If you are fighting over this mansion, I think that there is no need for it. Just as the two groups were about to fight, a voice that carried a smile sounded from the square. Quickly following this, a man and 3 women slowly walked into the square and toward the entrance of the mansion. "Who are you?" The gazes of the Qing clan and Lu clan immediately focused on Chu Bei. Their words carried a questioning tone. "The owner of this mansion," Chu Bei faintly replied. "What? He said that he is the owner of this mansion. Is this true?" Hearing Chu Bei's words, the surrounding crowd all had suspicious expressions on their faces. "What evidence do you have to prove that it's your mansion?" The Lu family's leader questioned again. "Can you enter this mansion?" Chu Bei pointed to the mansion that was wrapped in the light film and asked in return. "Can you?" Before the leader of the Lu family could speak, the leader of the Qing family let out a cold snort. Both he and the leader of the Lu family had tried to enter the mansion. However, even with their 8-star Do Wangs, their all-out attacks were unable to break the light film. Chu Bei didn't respond to the Qing family's leader. Instead, under countless gazes, he led the 3 women towards the gate at a moderate pace. When Chu Bei touched the light membrane outside the mansion, the light membrane directly turned into a rain of light and dissipated. Then, with a creak, the door of the mansion opened automatically. "Damn, could this mansion really be his? I'm 80% sure. Otherwise, how could the membrane be broken? Who is he? I've never seen him before. I don't think he's from Tianhuang City." When they saw the light membrane break by itself because of Chu Bei and the door open, the crowd of onlookers immediately started discussing with astonishment. "May I know who you are? Mansions are not allowed to be built in the central plaza. Since you're the owner of the mansion, please move it away." The leader of the Lu family looked at Chu Bei and said, "Since we've already chosen a location, I'm afraid we can't move it away. Let's do it here." Chu Bei looked at the wormhole 100 meters away. This was the place with the most traffic in Tianhuang City. It was indeed suitable for a shop to set up. Just as Chu Bei finished speaking, 4 words appeared on the originally empty plaque above the mansion's gate. "Celestial Shop." "Look! This is not only a mansion but also a shop. In other words, that guy is a merchant? I just don't know what he's selling inside. We'll know when we go in later." However, just as the crowd of onlookers was eager to enter the mansion to take a look, 4 words appeared on both sides of the gate. "Below Do Zone. No entry." "Damn! How can they do business like this? Are they discriminating against us who have low cultivation?" Seeing the 2 new words, the crowd of onlookers instantly exploded. Their faces were filled with anger as they stared at Chu Bei. The people from the Lu family and the Qing family also frowned. They were extremely displeased. "Are you really not going to move it away?" The leader of the Lu family stared intently at Chu Bei. The pressure of a Do Wang surged toward Chu Bei. "Disperse. Don't block my shop." Chu Bei did not care about the pressure from the leader of the Lu family. His light voice sounded as he casually waved his hand. Immediately, a wild wind wreaked havoc. Under this wind, even the Do Wangs from the 2 families did not have any ability to resist. They were forcefully sent 200 meters away from the mansion. "How is this possible?" When their bodies stabilized, the leaders of the Lu family and the Qing family looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with a thick shock. When the 2 of them looked at Chu Bei again, their eyes were filled with fear. As for Chu Bei, he ignored the 2 families and the crowd of onlookers. He led the 3 girls to familiarize themselves with the upgraded shop. Entering the mansion, they looked around. Although it was not big, the interior was filled with lush trees and colorful flowers. There were fake mountains, small ponds, green lotus roots, and pink water lotuses. All of these complemented each other, making it appear peaceful and beautiful. On the intersecting greenstone paths, birds could be seen flying happily. On both sides of the main path, there were 2 exquisite small houses. Walking into the house, the layout of the 4 houses was basically the same. The first thing that entered their eyes was a purple curtain. Under the curtain was a soft wooden bed. The exquisite carvings were extraordinary. At the end of the bed were tassels that swayed gently. Looking to the side, a guqin was placed in the corner. A bronze mirror was placed on a wooden dressing table. The entire room was fresh and comfortable. Obviously, these 4 rooms were for women. Boss, are we going to live here in the future? Looking at the layout of the room, the little doctor and Qing Lin's eyes lit up. Chu Bei glanced at the 2 girls, nodded slightly, and responded softly. They continued to walk along the main path. At the end of the path, there was a 3-story hall. On both sides of the hall, there was a black iron lion that was several people tall. Its mane was curly and its hair was like steel needles. Looking at its eyes, it walked forward with its head held high. Under its sharp claws, it stepped on a swallow and held a stone pearl in its mouth. Just looking at it, it was sharp, domineering, and majestic. On the plaque of the hall, there were the words, All Heaven's Shop. Walking into the hall, there were 10 rows of shelves. Each shelf was marked with an eye-catching number, from 1 to 10. At this moment, shelves 6, 7, and 8 were filled with dazzling products. There were only a few products on the 9th shelf. As for shelves 1 to 5 and 10, there was nothing. Under each product, there was a card with the price of the product written on the card. At the back of the shelf, there was a massage chair made of an unknown material. The massage chair was printed with the word 9. This is what a shop should look like. Looking at the dazzling products on the shelves numbered 6, 7, and 8, Chu Bei couldn't help but let out a sigh. Before this, the shop was empty. Chu Bei could only rely on spinning plates to obtain willpower. Although the upgraded shop didn't have a complete set of products, at least some of them could be sold with a clear price. As for the corresponding number on the shelves, it actually referred to the grade of the product, including the massage chair. Boss, can these products really be sold? Looking at the price of the products on the shelves, Qing Lin and Little Doctor's mouths were wide open. Especially the few products on the 9th shelf, the series of zeros on the price tag was dazzling. Those who need it will naturally buy it. Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. Perhaps because the prices were clearly marked and customers could choose according to their needs, the prices of the products on these shelves were much higher than the average price that could be drawn from the lottery. For example, the products on the 6th shelf, if one were to spin the lucky wheel, it would cost 800,000 gold coins per spin. On average, one could spin a 6th grade product 30 times, which was 24 million gold coins. However, the prices of the products on the 6th shelf were all above 30 million gold coins. Even if they were of the same grade, the prices were very different due to different uses. Boss, it's here too! Suddenly, Qing Lin screamed. At the corner of the wall, a 2-meter-tall iron lump stood there. If it was before, Qing Lin would have directly called it Iron Lump. However, after seeing how terrifying it was in the Heaven Eye mountain range, it was obvious that she was more afraid and respectful. The shop moved, so it naturally followed. Chu Bei's eyes fell on the iron lump. He knew that this was the real Xiao Hei, not the previous clone. This chair is so strange. Shaking her head, little Ziyan came to the massage chair with the number 9 printed on it and looked at it curiously. However, before Chu Bei could stop her, Ziyan had already sat down on the floor. Bang! Accompanied by a shrill scream, before little Ziyan's butt landed on the chair released a dazzling light. A terrifying force in the light directly sent Ziyan flying. When little Ziyan flew back, she looked at Chu Bei and pointed at the massage chair with an aggrieved expression. Chu Bei could not help but smile and said earnestly, Some things can only be seen, not touched, and even more so, not sat on. While Chu Bei and the others were visiting the upgraded shop, more and more people gathered around the square outside the mansion. What's going on with this mansion that fell from the sky? Is there an explanation? TSK, you came at the wrong time. If you came earlier, you would have seen the owner of the mansion. They all went in. Why are you all gathered here? Don't you want to go in and take a look? Didn't you see the words on both sides of the door? Those below the Grand Master level are not allowed to enter. Damn! There's such a thing? I am thinking, has the owner of this mansion reached the Do Zone class? You don't say, The owner of this mansion has really reached the Grand Master level. With a light wave of his hand, the two 8-star Grand Masters of the Qing and Lu families could not resist at all. Outside the shop, there was a commotion. Chapter 122. Tianhuang City, Lu Mansion. Inside a large hall, a green-clothed man in a long robe was seated in the leader's seat. A couple of people with powerful auras were seated on either side of him. The green-clothed, long-robed man was the clan head of the Lu clan. Does he insist on placing the shop in the wormhole? The clan head of the Lu clan looked at the red-clothed man kneeling in front of him. He frowned. An elite Do Zone has actually opened a shop. I really want to know what he is selling. Clan head, what should we do now? The red-clothed man revealed a respectful expression. I will personally make a trip and see just what kind of background he has. The eyes of the Lu clan head hardened. His voice sounded as his body turned into a ray of light and flew out of the hall. Behind him, the other clan heads in the hall also rose into the air and followed closely. A couple of minutes later, the group of people from the Lu clan landed on the green stone square and immediately became the focus of everyone around the square. Brother Lu, it is unexpected that you have personally come. Before the group of people from the Lu clan could enter the mansion, a powerful voice sounded. Soon after, another group of people landed on the square. Brother Cheng, your hand is really long. The words of the Lu clan head contained some dissatisfaction. The people who had arrived were the people from the Qing clan. Brother Lu, what are you saying? Although this green stone square is under your jurisdiction, we are only here to see what kind of shop has opened here. I'm afraid that you have no control over this, right? The clan head of the Qing clan extended his hand and pointed at the All Heavens shop. The clan head of the Lu clan snorted and ignored the clan head of the Qing clan. Bang! However, just as the two clans were about to ignore the large words on the two sides of the door and directly enter the shop, a loud sound suddenly sounded in the sky not far away. Soon after, two figures swiftly intertwined and appeared above the shop in an instant. Along with the continuous sounds of collisions, terrifying energy surged in the air. Clearly, these two figures were engaged in an intense battle. That is Elder Chiwa from the Burning Flame Valley! The eyes of the clan head of the Lu clan and the Qing clan shrank when they recognized one of the two figures. Although their two clans were the largest in Tianbei City, they were also subordinate factions of the Burning Flame Valley. Therefore, they had more or less met anyone from the Burning Flame Valley who had some status. Who is that black-robed figure? You actually dared to attack an elder of the Burning Flame Valley in the territory of the Burning Flame Valley. From the looks of it, Elder Chiwa's situation is not good. Around the square, the onlookers who had gathered were all alarmed by the battle in the sky. They all raised their heads to look at the sky. The Lu clan and Qing clan's attention were also focused on the battlefield. This was especially so for the two patriarchs. When they saw that Elder Chiwa was at a disadvantage, they looked hesitant. They wanted to help, but they didn't know the identity of the black-robed man, and they were afraid of offending the power behind him. Moreover, from the looks of the fighting auras, Elder Chiwa was a 6-star Do Zone while the black-robed person was at least a 7-star Do Zone or even an 8-star Do Zone. On the other hand, they were merely 4-star Do Zone. Even if they did help, they would not be able to defeat the black-robed man. Soul Devourer Blade! Suddenly, the power of the black-robed man on the battlefield increased by another notch. As he shouted, a black curved blade that was dozens of feet long appeared in front of him out of thin air. Upon closer inspection, this enormous black curved blade was actually formed from tens of thousands of tiny iron chains intertwined together, and within them were densely packed runes the size of fingernails. Shio! The black curved blade shot out explosively and headed toward Elder Chiwa from the Burning Flame Valley. Grug! The speed of the black curved blade was too fast, causing Elder Chiwa to be unable to dodge in time. All he could do was adopt a defensive stance. Although his defensive dodge technique had successfully reduced 70% of the strength of the black curved blade, 30% of its strength still struck his body. The most frightening thing was that this black curved blade not only caused harm to one's physical body, but it also dealt a fatal blow to one's spirit. Elder Chihuahua spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His body uncontrollably smashed toward the mansion below under the impact of the black curved blade. Bang! A low, deep, loud sound appeared as Elder Chihuahua violently landed on the green brick road of the mansion. However, the surprising thing was that such a large impact was unable to cause even the slightest bit of damage to the green brick road within the mansion. Elder Chihuahua has been defeated. Just what is the background of that black-robed man? Is he not afraid of the revenge of the burning flame valley? Although the surrounding people could not see Elder Chihuahua's figure, they could guess that the latter's current situation was not good. The black-robed man in the sky did not leave after seriously injuring Elder Chihuahua. Instead, he accumulated his strength once again. Clearly, he wanted to kill Elder Chihuahua. In an instant, an even more frightening black curved blade was formed in front of him. Elder Chihuahua wiped off the fresh blood from his mouth within the mansion. He frowned tightly when he sensed that he had once again been locked onto. Just as he was preparing to burn his essence blood and self-destruct his spirit in an attempt to seriously injure the other party, a figure strangely appeared beside him. After which, the figure lifted him up with one hand and swung the other toward the black curved blade that had already arrived in front of him. Chi-La! The figure that appeared out of nowhere casually waved his hand in front of Elder Chihuahua's shocked eyes and easily shattered the black curved blade. The next moment, Elder Chihuahua had yet to recover from his shock when he felt a huge force once again throw him back into the sky. This is my territory and I need to be quiet. If you want to fight and kill, find another place. Soon after, an extremely calm voice sounded beside Elder Chihuahua's ear. Elder Chihuahua looked in the direction of the voice and saw another figure not far away. The figure was looking at him calmly. Look quickly! It's the owner of the mansion. He has also appeared. The onlookers around the square immediately exclaimed when they saw Chu Bei appear on the battlefield. Is he the owner of the mansion? The Qing clan and Lu clan heads looked at the figure that had appeared on the battlefield. After muttering to themselves, they looked at each other. With their cultivation, they were actually unable to determine the latter's strength. In the sky, Elder Chihuahua recovered from his shock and hurriedly cupped his fists at Chu Bei. I'm Elder Chihuahua from the Burning Flame Valley. Thank you for saving my life! Chu Bei glanced at Elder Chihuahua indifferently and shook his head. I'm just afraid that your blood will dirty my residence. Elder Chihuahua's mouth twitched when he heard Chu Bei's words. He did not say anything else. Mind your own business. Not far away, the black-robed man looked coldly at Chu Bei. His cold voice that was filled with killing intent drifted in the air. Soon after, a large amount of black fog surged behind him, and his aura rose. Is it someone from the Hall of Souls again? Chu Bei looked at the black-robed man. Although his voice was not loud, it was clearly heard by Elder Chihuahua and everyone around the square. Elder Chihuahua looked at Chu Bei with some surprise. He seemed to be surprised that the other party could identify the black-robed man. What? That black-robed man is from the Hall of Souls. Why would someone from the Hall of Souls appear here? Why would he attack Elder Chihuahua from the Burning Flame Valley? After knowing the faction behind the black-robed man, everyone around the square was shocked. Joy flashed in the eyes of the Qing clan head and Lu clan head. Fortunately, they did not attack earlier. Otherwise, they would have offended a faction that was far more terrifying than the Burning Flame Valley. Since you know my background, why do you still dare to interfere in the matters of my Hall of Souls? The black-robed man stared coldly at Chu Bei. After his cold snort sounded, his body shook. 3 chains soul snatching. Accompanied by clear clanging sounds, 3 pitch-black chains from the black fog behind the black-robed man let out a sharp cry as they intertwined in the air. After which, they rushed toward Chu Bei at a frightening speed. Their momentum was shocking. Wherever the chains passed, the empty space would shatter inch by inch. Its momentum was shocking. Forget it. I will kill another person. Chu Bei's indifferent voice sounded in the air. Subsequently, he raised his right arm in front of countless gazes and opened his palm. Bang! Just as Chu Bei clenched his palm slightly, the three chains that were rushing over suddenly paused. The space around them suddenly became distorted. With a kacha sound, the chains that carried a frightening aura directly turned into a rain of light and disappeared. Do Zun. Witnessing this scene, the black-robed man's pupils suddenly shrunk. Shock surged in his eyes. Why? You want to leave? The black-robed man quickly reacted. However, just as he was about to leave, a laughing voice sounded in his ear. Immediately after, before he could do anything, the space around him suddenly became distorted. An enormous spatial strength that he could not resist began to tear his body and soul apart. A sharp cry was mixed with the tearing sound of the spatial strength. Under countless shocked gazes, the black-robed man disappeared into the sunken empty space bit by bit. The miserable cry faded away. The air was dead silent. The square also fell into silence. Swoosh! Countless gazes were subconsciously cast toward Chu Bei. There was obviously more respect in their eyes. As for the Lu and Qing families, when they looked at the two large words on both sides of the mansion's door again, those experts who were below the Do Zone realm involuntarily stepped back. Thank you, Sir Do Zun. High in the sky, Elder Chiwa took a deep breath and once again cupped his hands toward Chu Bei. He did not expect that there was a hidden elite Do Zun in Tianbei City. Moreover, he had coincidentally met him. If it was not for this Do Zun in front of him, he would have died in the hands of the Hall of Souls expert. I see that your injuries are not light. Why don't you enter my shop and see if there is anything you need? Chu Bei glanced at Chiwa Zun's clothes. After nodding his head with satisfaction, he pointed to the mansion below. Sir Do Zun, are you still a merchant? Elder Chiwa was surprised. However, he quickly said, Sir Do Zun, please bring me there. From his point of view, the things that a Do Zun sold were definitely not ordinary. At this moment, Elder Chiwa also noticed the green stone path that he had smashed earlier. Seeing that it was still intact, a strange expression flashed across his eyes once again. This mansion was not simple either. Those outside, as long as your cultivation meets the requirements, you can enter. After saying this, Chu Bei hesitated for a moment before adding, those who have over 40 million liquid assets can also enter. Hearing this, the clan heads of the Lu clan, Qing clan, and the other Do zones were stunned for a moment before they stepped into the mansion. A portion of the wealthy Do Wangs and Do Huangs who had yet to reach the Do zone class hesitated for a moment before following. Chapter 123. Currently, all the products that can be sold directly are here. You can take a look first. After arriving at the main hall, Chu Bei pointed at the shelves by the side and lay down on the chair. Elder Chiwa nodded at Chu Bei and walked to the side of the shelves. He was prepared to search for the products that were suitable for him. Along with the sound of footsteps, the Lu family head, Qing family head, and other elite Do zones, as well as other wealthy merchants, also walked into the hall. After knowing that Chu Bei was an elite Do Zun, the people who entered the hall were all extremely respectful. After that, with Chu Bei's permission, they also began to look at the products on the shelves like Elder Chiwa. Regardless of whether it was Elder Chiwa or the Lu family head, when they saw the prices of the products, they could not help but narrow their eyes and be shocked. At this moment, they finally understood why the other party had set the threshold that no one below the Do Zone level could enter. Among the shelves with products, even the cheapest one on the lowest shelf, the sixth shelf, had a price of over 30 million. The higher the grade of the shelf, the higher the price of the goods. Especially when they saw the few goods on the shelf, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they saw the price. Boss Chu, does this fish really have the effects that are described? At this moment, Elder Chihua stopped in front of the 8th shelf and pointed at the bottom shelf. He looked at Chu Bei and asked tentatively. The shelf that Elder Chihua was pointing at was a transparent glass shelf that was over 2 meters long. Although the glass cabinet was big, there was only a palm-sized green fish in it. At this moment, the little green fish's mouth opened and closed as it stared at Elder Chihua with its round eyes without blinking. Its eyes were filled with provocation. Come and eat me! Beside the glass shelf, there was some basic information about the green fish. Dragon spirit fish, level 8 product from the gourmet captive realm. Those below the Dozun level who are seriously injured can recover from their injuries in 15 minutes. Their cultivation will also increase. Price: 80 million gold coins. Hearing Elder Chihua's voice, the Lu family head, the Qing family head, and the others also turned their attention to the small blue fish. Just as they approached the transparent glass cabinet, a chill swept over their bodies, as if they had suddenly fallen into an ice cellar. Looking at the small fish in the glass cabinet, the surface of its green scales glowed with a faint silver light. Its round eyes had a hint of provocation, and it swung its tail from time to time. One fish, 80 million! He's still so young! Looking at the price, the Lu family head and the others gulped and opened their mouths wide. This price could no longer be described as sky-high. If they did not know that Chu Bei was an elite Dozun, they would definitely have thought that this shop owner had gone crazy. However, it was precisely because they knew of Chu Bei's cultivation base that other than shock, there was also some curiosity and anticipation in their eyes. Small business, honest management. If the product does not match the description, I'll compensate you 100 times the price. Chu Bei was still sitting on the chair as he looked at Elder Chihua and said nonchalantly. Hearing this, Elder Chihua hesitated for a moment before taking off the storage ring on his hand. After leaving 80 million gold coins, he passed the storage ring to Chu Bei. The host has sold the dragon spirit fish. The system has received 800,000 willpower, and the host has received 400,000 willpower. The storage ring disappeared, and the system's voice sounded. Are you planning to bring it back or eat it here? Or do you want to eat it here? Chu Bei pointed at the small green fish in the glass. It would be best if Boss Chu could help to deal with it. Elder Chihua cupped his hands together toward Chu Bei. Qing Lin, arrange it for him. Chu Bei looked at Qing Lin behind him and instructed. After speaking, Chu Bei waved his sleeve, and a complete set of kitchen utensils appeared in the hall. The big blue fish, which was originally in the glass cabinet, immediately appeared on the board unconscious. Under everyone's gaze, Qing Lin held a special knife and cleaned up the palm-sized dragon spirit fish that had fainted in just a few moves. It's actually golden inside. It's indeed different from ordinary fish. The quality of the meat is obviously several times better. Everyone looked at the fish belly that was cut open by Qing Lin with astonishment in their eyes. The fish meat was golden in color, with a few bright red blood vessels in the shape of meridians. The most special thing about it was that its surface was faintly releasing a hazy light. After Qing Lin skillfully prepared various seasonings, she began to fry the dragon spirit fish in the oil. After a while, a rich meaty aroma wafted out from the oil and gradually lingered at the tip of everyone's nose. It smells so good. I want to eat it too. Little Ziyan sniffed with her nose and saliva dripped from her mouth. She stared at the dragon spirit fish in the oil with shining eyes. The masters of the Lu family and Qing family could not help but swallow their saliva. Just the smell of the fried meat was enough to make them drool. Soon, the upper plate of the dragon spirit fish was brought to Elder Chihua by Qing Lin. Looking at the fragrant golden fish in front of him, Elder Chihua could not help but take a deep breath. There was some nervousness and anticipation on his face. This palm-sized fish was worth 80 million. Under everyone's gaze, Elder Chihua picked up his chopsticks and picked up the fried dragon spirit fish. After blowing on it, he slowly took a bite. Elder Chihua, how does it taste? The master of the Lu family, who was at the side, moved his throat and could not help but ask. Elder Chihua ignored the master of the Lu family. After the fish entered his mouth, he closed his eyes. His expression was sometimes melancholy, sometimes intoxicated, and sometimes frowning. He looked like a gourmet who had tasted many delicacies. Elder Chihua, say something! The master of the Qing family could not help but call out. The meat is soft and tender. It is fresh and fragrant. It melts in the mouth, leaving only a faint meat fragrance lingering in the mouth. Other than that, there is a faint pill fragrance. It is very unique. Elder Chihua's expression became relaxed. He looked like he was enjoying it. Just as he finished speaking, a warm current rose from his lower abdomen and quickly flowed throughout his body. It was extremely comfortable. During this process, Elder Chihua suddenly realized that his injuries from the soul devourer blade from the black-robed man from the Hall of Souls were rapidly healing. His chaotic and weak aura gradually recovered under this warm current, becoming stronger and stable again. It really has the effect of healing. After seeing the obvious effect, Elder Chihua could not wait to chew in big mouthfuls. In just a few seconds, the complete dragon spirit fish was completely devoured by Elder Chihua. At this moment, Elder Chihua's aura began to rise. There was an energy fluctuation in the surrounding space. It's really as described. Not only can it heal injuries, but it can also increase cultivation. Sensing Elder Chihua's rising aura, the experts in the hall looked at each other with shock in their eyes. 7 minutes later, Elder Chihua opened his eyes and exhaled a long breath of hot air. How do you feel? Chu Bei stood up from the chair and smiled as he looked at Elder Chihua. It is exactly as described. It might even be better. Elder Chihua's expression was excited. After swallowing the palm-sized fish, his injuries had not only completely healed but his cultivation had also broken through from the initial stage of a 6-star dose zone to the advanced stage of a 7-star dose zone. If he were to meet the expert from the Hall of Souls again with his current strength, he would not end up in such a miserable state like before. Unfortunately, he did not have the chance to meet the expert from the Hall of Souls again. The latter had already been killed by the boss Chu in front of him. Do you want to take a look at the other products in the store? Chu Bei extended his hand and pointed at the shelves by the side. Hearing this, Elder Chihua's expression became a little embarrassed. Boss Chu, none of these products are ordinary. I did not bring much money with me today. I will definitely come and visit again another day. The door is always open. Take care. Chu Bei nodded slightly at Elder Chihua, who was cupping his hands together. After personally witnessing the effects of the dragon spirit fish as described, the Lu clan head, Qing clan head, and the others once again returned to the side of the shelves and began to choose the products that were most suitable for them. An hour later, when the system notified that the will points had reached the upper limit, Chu Bei gave the order to leave. With the support of the experts from Tianbei City, Chu Bei sold a total of 400 million on the first day of business. The system obtained 4 million will points while he obtained 2 million will points. This was also the upper limit of what he could sell at the moment. Among the products that were sold, most of them were grade 6 and grade 7 products. As for grade 8 products, there were only 3 including the dragon spirit fish. As for grade 9 products, there were people who asked about them but no one bought them. The Fiery Mountain Range was a continuous mountain range located in the southwest of the central region. At a glance, this mountain range was completely formed by a fiery volcano. It was a uniform bright red color. At the top of some of the mountain peaks, thick white smoke was constantly rising in spirals. Occasionally, there would even be magma flowing out from within. Even in the entire central region, this mountain range was quite famous because it was located in one of the 3 famous valleys of the central region, the Burning Flame Valley. Of course, other than the fundamental factor of the Burning Flame Valley, the mountain range itself had countless volcanoes, causing the fire attribute energy here to be unusually rich. For those experts who cultivated fire attribute, cultivating here would undoubtedly yield twice the results with half the effort. Therefore, even though this mountain range was the territory of the Burning Flame Valley, there would often be experts who cultivated fire attribute techniques who would take the risk to cultivate here. Swoosh! In the distant sky, a long rainbow streaked across. After it landed in the depths of this mountain range, a light film similar to a barrier appeared in a strange manner. After passing through the barrier, there was a huge valley. Looking into the distance, the valley was filled with thousands of buildings. Between these buildings, figures could be seen galloping and chasing, as if they were exchanging pointers. Look! Elder Chihua is back! In the valley, after a disciple discovered Chihua, he exclaimed in surprise. After Chihua greeted these disciples, he flew directly to a fiery red hall in the depths. Valley Master, I am back! Chihua entered the hall and immediately bowed toward the leader's seat. On the leader's seat sat a skinny old man with a head full of red hair and wearing simple hemp clothes. Beside the red-haired old man, a red-clothed young lady stood prettily. A dark red long whip was wrapped around her slender waist, outlining her waist even more alluring. On the seats on both sides of the leader's seat, there were a couple of figures seated in an orderly manner. Clearly, they were all people with status in the Burning Flame Valley. Did you find a Tier 7 high-grade alchemist? Seeing Chihua, the red-haired old man on the leader's seat hurriedly asked. After Chihua shook his head, he recounted the process of this trip and the attack by the experts from the Hall of Souls in detail. Damn it! Does the Hall of Souls not even place our Burning Flame Valley in their eyes? After hearing Chihua's recount, the red-haired old man clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were filled with fury as a terrifying aura spread out. The Hall of Souls has been acting more and more recently. They have collected so many powerful spiritual bodies. Just what are they planning to do? An elder within the hall frowned. However, it is unexpected that a Dozun is actually hidden in Tianbei City. Valley Master Tangjin narrowed his eyes and looked outside the hall. I will pay him a visit when I have the time to see just what kind of background he has. Valley Master, since we are unable to find a Tier 7 high-grade alchemist, why don't we go and invite those old demons from the Pill Tower? Another elder opened his mouth and asked. The request that the Pill Tower has raised is difficult to accept. Tangjin's expression had an additional solemnness as he sighed. If we are unable to find a Tier 7 high-grade alchemist, we can only compromise with those old fellows. Tangjin looked at the red-clothed young lady beside him after saying this. His eyes were filled with tender love. Father, if it wasn't for the fact that I didn't listen to you and forcefully tried to fuse with the 9-dragon lightning flame, causing a backlash from the flame, you wouldn't be so worried. The red-clothed girl lowered her head, her face filled with guilt. Nothing will happen to you. Tangjin extended his hand and rubbed the red-clothed young lady's head. His words were filled with doting love. The red-clothed young lady had failed to merge with the 9-dragon lightning flame. Although she managed to keep her life, it left behind a great sequela. If left alone, the red-clothed young lady's life force would wither, and she would die in less than 3 years. Valley Master, although I have not been able to find a Tier 7 high-grade alchemist on this trip, there should be a treasure in Boss Chu's shop that can remove Little Flame's sequela. Elder Chief was seen to have thought of something and hurriedly said. Really? Tangjin's face immediately revealed a joyous expression. However, the treasures in his shop are quite expensive. Chihua paused before continuing. However, it is definitely worth it to those who need it. It's fine. As long as it is a problem that can be solved with money, it is not a problem. Tangjin's expression became increasingly excited. Looks like I will have to make a trip to Tianbei City now and meet this merchant that you speak of. Valley Master, I'm afraid that you will only be able to go tomorrow. There is a limit to the amount that Boss Chu receives every day. At that time, other than me, there will also be a Dozun from Tianbei City. I'm afraid that with their financial resources, if they all act together, they will have already bought the maximum amount for today. Just as Tang Jin was about to leave, Chi Hua immediately opened his mouth and added, "There is such a rule." Surprise flashed across Tang Jin's eyes. "If that is the case, I want to meet this boss Chu even more. Let's head to Tianbei City tomorrow morning." Tianbei City. After the Lu family head, Cheng family head, and the others left, the people surrounding the shops and the city square also left one after another. After Chu Bei received the 2 million willpower, he immediately converted it into his cultivation base. He went from a 1-star dozun to a 2 stars dozun. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.